Restaurant Unstoppable, episode 678 with Stacey Poon-Kinney. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, Stacey Poon-Kinney. Stacey, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I am absolutely feeling unstoppable and maybe a little stubborn.
Oh, okay.
I feel like they're almost the same.
Awesome. Let's just dive into your story. So as a descendant of restaurant operator, Stacey Poon-Kinney caught the restaurant bug early. After 8 years of managing a restaurant chain, Stacey and her father took over Megan's Cafe in 2007. After a successful 2-year run, Stacey decided to rebrand to the Trails Eatery and expanded the restaurant footprint to twice the size, but her success was followed by near total failure in 2011. On the urge of losing total hope, Stacey reached out to the Food Network and Robert Irvine's Restaurant Impossible, not Restaurant Unstoppable, but Restaurant Impossible. I was kind of worried when I was getting started that was too close and I was going to get in trouble, but I haven't heard from him yet. Maybe after this interview.
That's good news.
He
protects his brand pretty strongly.
Okay.
So does so does Food Network. They're pretty wild about that.
So they reached out to Restaurant Impossible's Robert Irvine, and they did great work. From that point, it was great for your brand. He had some great advice from you, and then from there, you've even taken it even further, and you've grown ever since, according to what we were just talking about. And I cannot wait to dive into your story and how you did it, and what you learned from Robert. But let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Okay, so my mantra for the restaurant is actually from Walt Disney. And one of my favorite things that he said is that the magic is in the details. It's all magic.
And you do have an eye for detail, because as we're about to hit record on the cameras, you were like, I don't know if we should be looking into, is that the ladies' bathroom or the men's bathroom?
You know, we're in California, so that is the bathroom.
The bathroom. Good call. You do have that eye for detail. I've already picked up on it. And I mean, where does this start to make sense sharing your story? Because you found out early. I know that your first experience in an actual restaurant was around a young age, or cleaning shrimp.
I was a kid. I mean,
right?
I grew up in kitchens.
Yeah.
My mom and dad split when I was young, and my mom, she waited tables and cooked and managed in different restaurant facilities, everything from like fine dining all the way through institutional, like cooking in hospitals and that kind of thing. So I was raised in every kind of kitchen you could possibly imagine.
Okay.
I mean, from the time I can remember. And my great-grandmother and great-grandfather who raised my mom, they were chefs. So like my great-grandfather was like a chef. Like he worked at Jack's on the Beach in Santa Monica. He fed the Rat Pack, that cool. Whole thing. So they raised her. So literally my whole life was always food, whether my mom was at work or I was at my great-grandmother and great-grandfather's house. Like there was always some kind of food situation going on. That's like how I knew. It's how I knew what love looked and felt like was food. Like
how
from the beginning.
What love looked and felt like. What did love look and feel like?
My great-grandma's fried chicken. The end. Bam. Like if I walked up the stairs of their apartment and I could smell fried chicken, I was like, oh my gosh.
What did you learn from just reflecting back at those times, knowing what you know now? What were the things that your grandparents and your parents and the people that were influencing you early on, what did you learn from them?
Wow, how much time do we have?
We have as long as you want. I've gone as long as an hour and 40-minute recording. So I'm not in a hurry if you're not in a hurry.
I'm not in a hurry. It's a big question. I think I learned to respect food. I learned that food is something, like food is a way for us to share who we are with each other. And it's a way for us to connect with other people. Like there's literally, I think, nothing in our lives that can bring different people together in a way that offers them this this peaceful opportunity to make a connection other than food. Like you can sit across the table from somebody that, an hour before you didn't understand at all and walk away like hugging. Like I don't know that there's anything else culturally that gives us that opportunity.
It's so amazing. And I used to think that my passion was truly just food when I was younger, but I slowly started to realize that I love what food does, and it's what food does that's the incredible thing. And to compound on what you're saying, it brings people together. It lowers guards. It's how we take care of each other by feeding each other. It's like how else do you show you care?
Yeah.
other than like providing sustenance to somebody, like life to somebody,
Like if you're like looking for a partner, I think the sexiest thing you could say is like, have you eaten yet? Like, can I make something for you? Like,
awesome.
yes, that's like that. I think that's like the cat's meow. If somebody would do that. Like
So when you were a kid, did you start dreaming about your own place? Is this when you started like having the vision? Nice.
I was like maybe 8 or 9, and I remember clearly. I even remember I was standing. I was at my like this diner that my mom worked at the time, and I'd come after school. I was like, hey mom, like, oh, I want to do this one day, and she was like, no. Absolutely not. I'm like, why not? She's like, honey, people and perishables. You don't want to mess with all of that. It's just too much. You're smarter than that. I was like, thanks, mom. So I kind of like, I literally sort of like put the dream in my back pocket. And I was like, that's fine. And 2 years later at 11, I'm peeling shrimp in that same kitchen, just, to make some pocket money. We didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. I had a really good life. Ooh, sorry.
It's okay.
I'm handsy when I talk. So we had a really good life. I didn't feel like I wanted anything, but like if I did want something, I had to work for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was definitely like a one pair of shoes at a time kind of existence. And it was fine. Like I said, I didn't feel like I was lacking anything, but like if I wanted a second pair of shoes, I was going to have to work for it. And I loved it. I was stoked.
Yeah.
So I'm like peeling shrimp with like frozen hands and building box lunches and going on catering events and like, like building beautiful like catering backdrops so that the servers could come in and like drop the food and that kind of thing. And I loved it. It was such a cool opportunity. I mean, totally illegal for me to work in that kitchen, but nobody cared. And interestingly, there was a lady named Tony that worked all those catering events with me. And later when I bought Megan's Cafe, she ended up working with me through her retirement.
Oh, wow.
Like it was so cool to just kind of come full circle. Cool. Like she literally taught me about like serving and like and catering, and I took all that catering information that I started learning at 11 and kind of kept going until I was maybe 14 or 15. I took all that information and I was able to like parlay that into future like professional opportunities.
I think it can be so powerful too to get kids working at a young age. I mean, why not? I mean, I think until recently it's been kind of frowned upon. Like kids, used to start working younger a lot. I mean, I'm not talking like sweat shop or anything like that.
I was like, wow.
But like I grew up like same, just like I grew up in a restaurant. Like it's my parents owned the restaurant, so they could get me working legally as young as they wanted to. But just knowing the value between. Just knowing the value of money, like earning money. Yeah, exactly. And then I think my parents also taught me at a young age too that, well, do you want that or do you need that?
Yeah.
Like, and that having to get it yourself kind of helps you gauge, do I really need this or do I want it?
Yeah.
Did you notice the same thing?
No, I do. I think that it really gives you an opportunity to kind of, to learn about the world and finances and value.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the difference. My son, he works here from time to time. He's getting his food.
How old is he now?
He's now 13.
Okay.
He's almost 14, which is wild to me. I know. When we bought the restaurant, he was walking under the tables.
Oh, man.
So like the difference is insane. He's 6 feet tall now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's giant. But he's been working in the restaurant for the last 2 years, and I'll tell you why. Because this child decided to spend a whole bunch of money on his Xbox, which has my credit card attached to it. Though I had warned him, it's very easy to do. Don't push yes. You don't know what you're spending. So I get my credit card statement. And I was like, So it was like $240, right? And I was like, it was right before Christmas break. All right. If you want to be a big enough kid to spend money, let me tell you how much it takes to earn money.
Yeah.
So I think minimum wage was $11 an hour at the time. I was like, so that might be about $10 after taxes.
Yeah.
Ooh, and to work in my restaurant, you need non-slip shoes. You'll have to purchase those for yourself. Those are $40. So he spent his winter break putting dishes away for us, and it was great because we were super busy. 4 hours at a time. So I definitely honored that, that part. Like, they're not supposed to work more than 4 hours. And frankly, at 11, he was useless after 4 hours. But, he had to come in and bust it out. And I said, don't complain. Yeah. Ask questions when you need to. Ask for help when you need it. But this is your job.
But I bet he appreciates the Xbox a whole lot more now because of it.
Well, I'll tell you what, he also appreciates the opportunity to earn money, and he decided that he liked working.
Nice.
So at the end, I mean, he's also sort of a character. So he was like, thanks, Mom. I actually really like this. Can I do it again soon? I was like, this was not punishment. But he values money now. And so now he says to me, like, hey, he wants to go on the 8th grade trip, which is thousands of dollars to send them to the East Coast and do this like history trip for a week during spring break. Like, that's cool. I'll pay for half, you pay for half. So you can work half of it off in the restaurant over your holidays and part of your summer. So he's like plenty of time to do it because he should still have time to be a kid. But yeah, I want him to know like that trip, it's hard work to get on. And it's going to be, because that's my hard work. I explained to him like, hey, you want this? I earn this much money in a day based on my salary. And then if I'm lucky and we don't pay for a new water heater and a new refrigerator and a new, cause this just and a new point of sale system, like we're literally, my profitability for the, last quarter of the year is gone. Like, so if we can really only ever count on the salary that I'm making. So that's X amount of dollars a day. So how many days is it going to take me to pay for your trip?
Don't make me
do
what
I mean? Like, oh yeah. No, but I mean, I asked him that, like, hey, like, let's think about like the value of this. This is how hard I'm working. Are you willing to meet me there? So his answer is yes. So I'm like, cool.
The moral of the story: make your kid get a job in a restaurant and learn the value of the dollar, because it's just a great young skill to have, or just a young knowledge to have the value of a dollar, right? What it takes to get the things I want, right?
Can we also ask everybody to work in a restaurant at some point in their life, or they're like not allowed to eat in one? Really, like, let's be real and honest. Like, there's a lot of restaurateurs that are listening to this, but I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I think that once you've worked in this industry, you understand just how to interact with people in all the rest of your life in a different way. It just has so much value. You learn how to carry a whole bunch of stuff.
So many life skills. I mean, picked up, man. So many life skills, and I think no, you're good. You mentioned before we started the recording that you're recovering from, was it bronchitis or
pneumonia?
Pneumonia.
I have pneumonia, but I'm here.
Thank you so much for powering through that to join us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
So you've been working in this industry a long time. You have 8 years managing a chain restaurant. What was going on before?
Actually,
between 10 years. Okay,
10,
thank you
11,
for correcting me.
12, if you put all of the different chains that I managed before.
So
lots of
get
years.
super aerial and just kind of list the places you work between, childhood and like young adulthood before.
Well, I won't say the one I worked at as a child because that was pretty illegal, but it was very sweet of them to teach me so many things. And then I worked at McDonald's and was a manager there as a teenager. So I was managing grown-ups at 15 or 16, and then I worked at the Marble Slab, which was a really similar concept to Cold Stone, and I was a manager there. And then I worked at San Diego or UCSD Catering, and I ran the front desk for catering sales, which is my only office job because I don't sit well.
Okay, I feel that.
I was like, oh my God. Literally, I put my notice in, and they were like, so when is your notice going to be, like, what are you going to work through? And I was like, I think today. They're like, that doesn't really count as notice. I was like, I know, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. They're like, we know, we love you. So I ended up working also at another like mom and pop restaurant that was related to Megan's Cafe. It was pre-Megan's Cafe. It was, what was it called? Country Comfort. And then I also, then what did I do after that? Then I worked at Rock Bottom, for all those years.
Okay, so Rock Bottom is where you really got you leaned into your management skills.
I leaned into my management skills there, I managed the floor at Megan's Cafe. I don't know. I always kind of get sucked into being a manager. It's just who I am.
I think it's a great way to learn. Like, if you want to learn about systems, processes, procedures, coming up in a corporate chain or a franchise,
100%.
You'll learn so much about that, and it will set the standard of what that should look like if you ever go and like open your own place, which I'm sure that served you really well.
It did, but then the other part of that is there's also all these safety nets, right? There's a corporate office, so you have an HR issue on site, you call your HR office. You have a payroll issue on site, you call your payroll office. So they're doing all the nuts and bolts, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people get in trouble around, right? Like, oh, I can do this. Like, I'm really great at running a restaurant. Yeah, sure, but are you great at payroll, marketing, HR? You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna wear all the hats all of a sudden. Can you handle that?
Yeah. So.
Or are you gonna? Or do you have a plan for how you're gonna outsource that? Now, how are you gonna pay for that?
Yeah,
right? Like,
but I
there's
think
all
these things, like at the same time, I think that's kind of setting you up to know, like, we need to essentially all those things that you just listed were the tools that you provide your team so they can do the job, right? You're giving them the tools they need to do the job so they can focus on the operations on the floor, right? But thinking like a big business as a small business, thinking about, like, you see that like a business has all these parts, and eventually, like, you need you have the aiming point that you need to like eventually get all these pieces, all these appendages. Yeah. Right.
But the other thing is even looking at the numbers. So I ran the numbers for our restaurant. We were, I think when I left, we were 6.8 million. A year. So we were big. Yeah, 13,000 square feet, 550 seats, 270 employees. It was a beast.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And we're talking about rock bottom.
We're
right
talking
now.
about rock bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we went from that to 8-person, staff here doing a couple $100,000 a year. And here's the thing that we always said when we were looking at numbers at rock bottom was that volume hides everything.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that you can't see the little bits and pieces that are missing, that fall off, that aren't working right when you have all this volume telling you that you're hitting your percentages and everything's great. Right?
Yeah.
There's all these little ways that it could be better, little tweaks that should be happening, small wares that are disappearing, but you write it off because,
You get the cash flow.
you have the cash flow. And as far as numbers go across the country, you still look good.
Yeah.
Now you take that and you drill down to a day-to-day, hour-to-hour. Now tell me what it looks like, because that's what's running a small business is like.
Yeah.
It's a whole different game. So then you're talking about, and actually the chef at Rock Bottom, Alberto, is the one who really taught me this lesson. Because he also had the best food costs in the entire
was his
country.
name?
Alberto.
Alberto. Okay.
And so we had close to 200 restaurants in the corporation at the time. This is before Gordon Biersch bought them. And at that time, Alberto ran the best numbers in the whole country. And he would say to me, Mija, why are you throwing away the end of that carrot? Like, that's at the end of the carrot. And he was like, no, that's for soup stock.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just learned so many lessons.
Everything can be used,
And
right?
that literally, he's like, everything has a purpose. There is no waste in this kitchen.
Awesome.
And so that was a big lesson
just
coming
wanna
from
make
the front of the house.
I want to make sure we're not jumping
Sorry.
over any key. No, I'm sure I was kind of anticipating spending a lot of time at rock bottom, but
Yeah.
are we overlooking any key experiences, any key mentors, anything that's worth bringing to the surface before getting into like what Alberto taught you and like other mentors taught you during your time at rock bottom?
So, Alberto was like a great mentor for me at Rock Bottom in that way, and also in drilling down in numbers and that kind of thing, and seeing seeing everything in between, like really paying attention to his staff, what they were doing with the time in between the tasks he's asking them to do, and not just asking his people, for what he needed from them, but being a leader in that space and showing them what they needed, and then holding them accountable to showing up for their job every day. And all the guys that worked in the kitchen, and really it was all men, that was something that I was like, this could be different.
Well, I'm curious. You mentioned one thing which is really important, right? Lead by example. It's not enough to say do this, and this is how you do it, and this is to the standard I want to see you doing it. But you have
and
to
let me show you how.
But you have to be the example. You have to set the pace with your body, and show them what it looks like, right? Because otherwise, we just don't have that aiming point, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you got to show them that picture of perfection. But how did he hold people to standards? Because that's one thing that you said he did really well too, is holding people to standards.
Yeah.
Well, can you break that down for us?
I mean, he was a present manager.
Okay.
So he was present in terms of just being around, but he was also mentally present. It's one thing to be in a space, it's another thing to actually be engaged in your space. So he was always engaged, and when he would see something, he'd have a conversation. Hey, if we're going to dice, I'd like it to be diced to this standard. This is the size dice I want. I don't want anything bigger. I don't want anything smaller. Ready, go. Okay, yeah, that looks good. Move on. And I think any great chef looks like that. A great chef is teaching constantly.
Yeah.
I think any great leader is teaching constantly. So when you say you're leading by example, oftentimes that doesn't mean necessarily that you're doing the whole thing, but that you're willing to teach the person who needs to do that job how to do the job well.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me, and I always go back. Like I probably sold more of Danny Meyer's books than anybody else. Danny Meyer, actually, it would be Danny Meyer. I always say Danny Myers, but it's
I'm actually
Danny
not
Meyer.
familiar at all. I feel like I should take a note.
Yeah, but in that book, he's always talking about that constant, gentle pressure, right? And that's what I hear from Alberto, is that he had that, like, when things were shifting from the standard, he'd come back and be like, this is how I want this dice to this standard. Yeah. But he didn't bark, right? He just showed you how to do it, and like this, and he set that example. And don't lose your shit, because that's your job.
I think that every once in a while, it's worth losing your shit.
Okay.
For sure. I think when sometimes you need to. Like when you're that kind of person who doesn't lose their shit, and then something happens and you do, people really listen. So I reserve losing my shit for health and safety risks.
But
so somebody wasn't handling food on my line right, and I just talked to them about it 2 other times.
Yep.
I lost my shit.
I
had some like cursing and some like yelling, and then I walked away, and then I do the thing that I do as a parent. I circle back a couple hours later so everybody's hurt feelings can calm down. And I say, now let's sit down and talk about why this was a problem.
I think you bring up a good point because that's your 10, right? But
Yeah.
you don't want to live up at 10 because people will start. They won't take what you say seriously if you're always up at 10.
Also, who wants to live at 10?
Exactly.
Like,
But if you cruise at 5 and 6, and every once in a while you go up to 8 or 9, but you reserve that 10 for like you cross the line and like you got to know like I can go to a 10, but I think it's important to know what your levels are so you aren't always extreme, but like I agree with what you're saying. It's basically what I'm trying to say.
Okay, listen. Literally 2 weeks ago, I was dying. I couldn't breathe. I came in. I was working my butt off. Somebody would call out sick. Like today, somebody called out sick too. I don't have any movement on my staff right now. We've had a bunch of changes fast. It's just how it happens, right? Yeah. So I'm out here running a shift, and I'm literally, I turned 11 tables at the end of our day, and I had asked our service staff, who they were kind of working towards their checkout, doing their side work. Hey guys, I need you to back me up today. Hey guys, I need you to be present for me today. I called them all into the service station. I'm like, I can't breathe.
Yeah,
I need you to do as much as I can. Yeah, and it was 2 weeks ago. So it was
full-fledged. Yeah.
So I come around the corner, and one of my guys is sitting talking to some people who are off work already. I lost my shit. With what shit I had to lose that day. I didn't have much to lose, but it was there.
I hear you.
So I mean, like, whatever, every once in a while, I think it's worthwhile. And I think like people like go, oh wow, like, because I'm super chill the rest of the time. I'm probably like a 2. But I'm touching base. I'm talking to people. I'm asking them to I call it the bumpers. Like, oh, a little bit this way. Oh, a little bit that way.
Guiding, right?
Every moment's a teaching moment.
The edge of the river.
Yeah, like, hey guys, we're just gonna move back this way, right? And that's fine, and I love it, and I have fun with them, and I'm silly with them, and like I love my team. Like they are my family.
And it shows because even like we'll get into this. I don't want to get too far ahead, but when you were on Restaurant Impossible. Your people had your back. It was obvious that your people had your back, and you only have someone's back if you have their back. So it's clear that your people know that you have their back. But every once in a while, you got to be the bad guy. You got to set the standard. You got to let when people know that their behavior is not acceptable.
I was going to tell you about mentors, and so you're talking about this whole like thing about having people's back, and I really learned what that meant from Matt Okita at Rock Bottom. He taught me about.
Who's Matt Okita first?
So Matt Okita was the GM, and I was his AGM.
Okay.
And but before that, he hired me as a server when he was the GM there. Then he left, worked at another restaurant, and I came up in management under a different GM. Okay. And then he transferred back. And that's kind of right as like my life was changing. I had gotten married, I got pregnant, I had my son, and so it was all during these like pretty momentous times for me. But I always had this affinity for him because he had hired me, and he was there like the first 6 months that I was there, and then I worked with him sort of indirectly because of other corporate things. He was here on the West Coast, and I was involved with like I taught the ABC classes, the alcohol safe service classes across the entire West Coast, and then I trained all the other trainers, and then I also dealt with all of our banquets and like getting all of that sort of standardized for everybody across the West Coast, and did a lot of marketing and whatever. So I did lots of things outside of what I did, and then I also trained managers. So I trained about 200 managers for Rock Bottom, the company, with our team at Rock Bottom La Jolla. So
what did Matt teach you? How did he form you?
Matt Okita, he taught me about what it meant to just genuinely care in a professional environment about somebody, because I think that's a tough line, right? To show care and concern and like be in somebody's life and be there for them, have their back, but also maintain these like boundaries and rules and roles inside of a corporate space.
Get specific. How did he teach you that? What does that look like? How can you take that lesson and pass it on to my listeners?
I was pregnant, which nobody likes in the restaurant industry. That's the truth.
Unfortunately, yeah.
It is. It's true.
Yeah.
And I was assistant general manager, so I was there all the time. Like, I mean, I worked 70 hours a week. So he sat me down and he goes, listen, kid, you're going to have to work less. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, you get to work 45, 50 hours a week right now. And then when you come back, you only get to work 40 hours a week. So you have to figure out a way to use your time, in a way that's wise, and you're gonna have to get better about delegating because other people need to do a lot of the stuff that you do. So get a plan together. Let me know how I can help you. So he really taught me so much about delegating. Like, he was caring for me by telling me like I had to work less, which is a crazy thing. He was caring for me, and then my pregnancy got a little complicated, not terribly, but I wasn't allowed to do stairs because I was having like Braxton Hicks like contractions early. 5 months.
Wow.
And so they're like, no stairs. We were a two-story restaurant. That was kind of a problem.
Yeah.
Our office was upstairs. Our
man.
banquet room was upstairs. So he was like, you get to go upstairs one time to check all of the stuff in the office. And he was like, and you get to go upstairs one time if there's a banquet. Somebody else can be in charge of that.
Yeah.
He's like, you've trained them all enough. I'm like, okay, cool. And then the man bought me a recliner
Oh my gosh.
and put it in the chef's office.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, I expect that you sit in this twice a shift at least.
That's awesome.
Like, that's like love. That's some crazy stuff. But go
Sorry.
ahead.
No, please.
But he also was willing to like share his life with me and his stories and his whys. And he was willing to do that with all of our stuff. And he was willing to like check in and remember the little things about people's lives. Like, hey, I heard your aunt was sick. What's going on? How can we support you? He kind of always kept his ear to the ground and knew what was going on before somebody would come in and have the talk with him in the office. Like, hey, I hear you're going back to school. Is there something that you need from us? Is there a way that we can back you up in that situation?
Yeah.
Like, that's so exciting. Or you don't look like yourself today. What's going on?
Yes.
Like just the check-in. Like, I care about you as a human. I don't just care about the job that you come in. You're not just a number. You're not just like, labor.
Yep.
But you're a person with a life, and that matters
Yep.
to me. So we always found the time to connect with people on that level.
So you're showing us the side of the manager that needs to truly, authentically care for the employee. But where is that line drawn? Where do you draw that line? How did he walk that line and bounce that line?
So like Matt never went to a party, but he also had a family. It's interesting because I thought he was so old then. And it literally, like,
Was
I'm
he
his
29?
age.
Or like,
no, like, he was in his 40s. Like, I'm
Okay.
his age with kids, the age his kids
Yeah,
were
yeah.
then. And he just had a grandkid. He texted me. He was like, hey, like, my grandbaby's.
You
Anyways,
thought
we're
I was
still in
old
touch.
then?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, my God. That's coming for me one day.
Yeah.
Anyhow, what did you ask? I
The line,
lost completely.
so
the line.
You
So,
showed
yeah,
us
like,
that you painted that picture of what caring looks like, right?
Yeah.
But where is that line? You said never going to parties.
So yeah, Matt's never gonna like go hang out after work. He's not gonna do any of that because he has a family, like,
Yeah.
and that's gonna be his priority after that. But he also isn't going to like bend the rules of the business because of that. Like, he wants to know what your situation is, but he's also gonna say like, my thing that I also have to care for is how all of this works together. So in caring for each other, we're going to make sure that we do this based on the structure that we have set up, right? The structure's there for a reason. So it shows care and respect for each other if we utilize the structure. So if you need this time off, I'm going to make sure that I can do that for you after this schedule. In the meantime, anytime somebody needs this time off where the schedule's already out, can you try to work on getting those covered? We'll also look for those for
So
you.
the line is
You know what I mean?
respecting the boundaries that you built these systems, these processes, these procedures, these protocols. Like, those are the lines,
Yeah.
right? And you operate within those lines. Is that kind of what I'm picking
Absolutely,
up?
and they're always there for a reason, right? You've
Yeah.
built them that way for a reason, or your corporate office has built them that way for a reason. Now, also, he was one of those people that if there was something from corporate that in our store it didn't make sense, and that happened, he was willing to say to corporate, in our store, that doesn't make sense. And I loved that about him. He was fearless. They hated it.
Well, I mean, it's good.
But-
You need that little bit of just as much as you need order and structure. You need chaos. You need that thing that's going to be up there and challenge reality and fight order and structure because because we're constantly evolving. Industries are constantly evolving. You
Yeah.
need to challenge status quo.
And I think it wasn't necessarily challenging like the order, right? Like, yeah, we're about that order. We're about having these boundaries, right? That's helpful for us ultimately.
Yeah.
But if they're the wrong ones for who we are in this space,
How are
because
you
La
gonna
Jolla
grow?
was a very
Yeah.
different store. No, like, you're tying our hands behind our back. Like, we can't do the
Can
job
evolve,
we're
yeah.
supposed to do. So yeah, I mean, change and evolving, that's like a whole nother thing. Like, I'm
Yeah.
all about that. Like, that is everything.
But the big thing I'm picking up from you in Matt, right? Mike or Matt? Is that and the Maya Angelou quote keeps coming to my mind that people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And that's what caring looks like, is
Yeah.
how you make people feel. Showing them that you care with your actions,
Yeah.
right? And your interests in them, and not just going through the motions, but taking the time to pause and say, who cares about work right now? How are you? What do you need to be happy? And I think that's kind of what I pulled from that story.
And I think that's like caring about work though, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if you're caring about somebody's life and who they are as a person, like, they're going to work for you.
You're only as good as the people that you surround yourself with, right?
You are, but the other thing is that people don't work for companies, they work for people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So be that person that people want to work for.
Be a person first and a company second.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, and be a person inside of a company that knows who it is, right? That acts almost as if it is a person, or as if it is, like the business is a family, right? So that's what we do here. We have a sign, I'll show it to you later. It says, the Trails family. And then it says like what we are. Who are we? These are the qualities that define who we are.
Why is it so important to write that down?
I think I wanted it in a place where people would look at it every day. It's important to write it down because it's important to remember the tenets that are guiding us, right? Like our mission, okay, that's one thing, right? But our values, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing. Mission, vision, values, right?
So they need to be refreshed because we're human. We're not going to remember verbatim the 12 or 10 or whatever list of values that you created when we went through orientation. Like it needs to be something that you live every day. It needs to be top of mind. It needs to be exposed.
Our culture is not just what people see on paper. Our culture is enacted in every moment, in every step of service, in every interaction, not only that we have with our guests, but that we have with each other.
So we've we've talked a little bit about Trails up to this point, Trails Eatery, but before we really dive into when you started living intentionally to make your restaurant, your own restaurant, come to fruition, is there anything else that we haven't discussed up to this point? Any key mentors, any key lessons that are worth pulling to the surface before taking a break to thank our sponsors and diving into your journey as an entrepreneur and restaurateur?
I think that my mom doesn't get enough credit publicly. And I think that's hard for me because so much of our story has been Restaurant Impossible.
Yeah.
And it's the thing people know best about us, about me and about the Trails. And that's great. I'm so grateful for that. But that story was really based in my father and our relationship, in terms of the business, right? So he is my business partner. I like to call him my not so silent business partner because he is in the medical field. Like he is not in the food service industry. This is my forte. So Dad ponied up a ton of money and I ran away with it. But he's not my food story. He's not. And he gets all the credit for that. And it kills me because I grew up in my mom's kitchen. I grew up in restaurants because my dad didn't pay child support. Sorry, Dad, it was real. My mom was busting her butt to make it work because she had to. And food was a way that we were able to do it. And she was also this parent that never shooed me out of the kitchen. And she served me so well because of that. And she never shooed me away from her job. Like I would just literally show up after school like, hey, what's going on? Because I love being there, and she just always kind of like brought me into the fold. When I like walk in the kitchen, I'm like, Mom, can I help you? She always said yes.
What can we distill from this? What's the lesson you want us to take away from who your mother was and how she treated you?
I think that the lesson is that when you have somebody who's curious about something that you're doing, take the time to teach them. You can change their lives.
Yes, I love it. Awesome, great stuff there. And I think that's a great time or a great point to take our break to thank our sponsors. And we'll be right back. This episode brought to you by MarginEdge. Never deal with a paperwork nightmare again. We're back, and we're just about to get into you going out on your own to open or to not open because the restaurant was already open. You took over a restaurant, right? I can't help but think of the entrepreneurial myth listening to your story because you were talking about it earlier, right? Like you're an amazing manager, you're kicking ass at rock bottom, but there's all these things that you're just so used to being like, oh, that's HR's responsibility, oh, that's accounting's responsibility, all these departments that you can just delegate to, and then the entrepreneurial myth, the E-Myth, the book, right, is that like you do the thing really well, and then like you're like, oh, I could do this way better for myself, right? And then you go and try to do it for yourself. You're like, oh, what about all these things I wasn't considering that I was outsourcing or delegating to, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what it felt like early on? I don't want to make too many assumptions.
No, it's okay. It did and it didn't. It was like this annoying like tick, like, oh, I have to make sure this payroll thing happens. I'm like, I'd have this like initial like desire to like reach for the phone, and like push the corporate office number. And I'm like, oh,
that's me.
Can't call anyone. That's me. Literally.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we're going to do this LTO and we're going to, bust this out and bust that out. And like, okay, I've got to put the specials together. That's me. Like, you know what I mean? But the great thing is that I came with a small graphics background because of school, and I used to do like hip hop dance flyers for people. So I had this, I had this great, like,
Marketing,
I had like marketing experience, and I had graphics experience. And the business that I owned 2 businesses actually before I owned this.
Wow.
You didn't know that because nobody ever asked.
Well,
you want to know?
Yeah.
Before I did it.
Please.
So I owned a dance production company.
Oh,
so my husband and I had dance events for break dancers mostly, and we also we created and produced, and I hosted the first international all women's breakdancing competition.
That's cool.
It was great. We did that for 3 years, and people came from all over the world. It was a really big deal, and now like the largest breakdancing competition in the world is happening here in San Diego at the end of this month. And a friend of mine from high school, like that's his business that he's grown. It's called Freestyle Session, and he's having it at one of the places where I held one of my contests. And he actually came to me and was like, I went by China in that world. He's like, hey China, like, what do you think if I use this venue? And like, we were just able to touch base about it as promoters. So it was an interesting thing to get pulled back into that space. So I had that business, and then after my husband and I got married, we actually opened a tattoo shop.
Oh wow.
So we had a tattoo shop for a number of years, and then when we bought this, I decided to step away from that, to sell that, because I couldn't run both things well at the same time, because I ran the business side of that.
I think I recall seeing that your husband's an artist.
He is an artist, so he doesn't tattoo very often anymore.
Okay.
Like he only does pieces he really wants to do, which is kind of fun.
That is cool.
Yeah, and he has like privileges at a shop that a friend of ours owns that used to work for us, and that's nice.
No, I'm happy you're bringing this to the surface, because we can learn so much from our prior experiences, right?
Oh my God,
so
absolutely.
these are your first businesses. I'm sure you learned a ton.
I learned a ton, a lot of it the hard way.
Success. Well, what were some of those hard lessons that you learned through these other businesses?
Well, like the dance business, profitability matters. Like, the dance business was not very profitable at the time.
Passion project.
It was a total passion project, aka money pit, aka people just want things for free. Like basically, I was paying to hang out with my friends. Like none of that made sense ultimately. But what I also learned is that it matters. It really matters, like, that you love what you do.
Okay.
Right. So you have to be passionate about it. You call it a passion project.
Yeah.
Sorry, but you want to make sure that your money project is a passion project too, because you're going to spend all your time there.
Well, you need that passion, that desire, whatever you want to call it, is going to be what helps you show up every day.
It's going to help you show up. It's going to help you not leave. It's going to help you know what I mean? Like, because it's just never ending. Like I talk about how I have these hard lines now. When I leave this building, I try to leave work here. Or I say, like, I have to do this one thing at home. I'll give myself the one thing, because every once in a while there's like this dangling thing. It's just I have to do it at home. Okay, but then the rest of it, I have to have this hard line and go have the rest of my life, because I swear to you, I could work until 1 o'clock in the morning every day and still feel like not everything was done.
Oh my God, that's
but
the
if
story,
I'm always going to prioritize how I make money to support my family over spending time with my family, I've done everybody a disservice. So at some point, I'm going to have a lot more things that are bugging me about what's not done here, but it's not like on fire. It's fine. And I'm going to have more time with my kids while they're kids.
Yes.
And that's just
and you
like,
only get
I
a
can't
window.
get that
You only
back.
get a small window, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you could always have more kids, but
oh no, knock on everything. Nobody wants me pregnant again. It's not fun. Imagine. Okay, so listen, I was 217 pounds. I couldn't touch the end of my stomach.
Wow.
And I was on the line. Like nobody,
Your
I
arms
was
aren't that long.
not happy. Well, I burnt my stomach at one point, and actually a guy who worked for me named Kevin Arthur, which also has been a huge mentor and influence in my life. He taught me so much about food when he was here as our chef. I hired him as our chef because I knew I was going to have to go out. I hired him when I was secret pregnant.
Okay.
And
This
so
is
then
with your daughter.
with my daughter, with Matisse up here.
Yes.
So then we're talking, and I make him go to it was a food service provider food show. Right. So it's one of these like giant cattle call things that are showing you all their new specials and all the stuff that could work for you. Right. I mean, it's just like a huge hall with bullshit amount of food. Right. And so I make him go with me because I want to hear his philosophy on food. I want to hear what he thinks. I want to hear what like he thinks works for brunch. Because here's the reality. I live in this narrow lane. Right. breakfast and lunch food and brunch food, it's a narrow yellow lane. And that's fine. You can do a lot inside that lane, but we got to stay in our lane because we got to do what we do well, but we can't do everything for everybody all the time.
That's
right?
a huge lesson. I think that's something that comes up. I mean, I think we'll probably circle back to that. Yeah.
So I'm with Kevin, and I'm telling him, like, how are we going to stay in the lane? What do you think? Whatever. So we're talking. I'm like, yeah, I want to hire this guy. So we walk outside, and he's like, I feel like I'm lying to you. I have to tell you something. I'm like, okay, like, what's he possibly going to say? He's like, so my wife is actually pregnant, so at some point I'm going to need some time off, and I'm going to need about this much time. She's due, what was she due?
Like a month?
The first week of September. I was like, okay, how's that going for you guys? And blah, blah, blah. I was like, I'm like trying to figure it out because my only other cook that I had here, his wife was due in August.
Oh my goodness.
Right? That's why I was hiring somebody, because I was like, we're not going to have a cook. And I was literally like, oh my God, this is going to be tight. Okay, I'm due at the end of September. We should be fine.
Yeah, it's a tight turn.
But I'm like, now I feel like I'm lying to him. We're standing in the parking lot of the Del Mar Fairgrounds. And I'm telling him, like, hey, like, how's your wife doing? He's like, oh, she's frustrated. Her pants don't fit. I'm like, here's a trick. And then nobody at work will know. It was her first pregnancy.
Yeah.
I'm like, you just use a hair tie and you tie it on your pants and whatever. Literally, I was doing the same thing at the same time. And we get to the end and I'm like, here's the deal. I really want to hire you, but now I feel like I'm lying to you. He's like, what? I'm like, I'm pregnant. I'm due at the end of September. Do you think this will work? He's like, we'll make it work. Let's do this. So anyways, he started working for me.
Well, it's also good to have like people that are going through the same shit at home and at work, because then you have that support group, I would imagine.
Except for these two wonderful men working in my kitchen had pregnant wives at home, and then they had to deal with their pregnant work wife. It just was like a lot. And I was sick and insane. Like I had pneumonia twice.
So where is this in the storyline?
Oh my gosh, this is right when we were expanding.
Okay.
So right when we went from Megan's to the Trails, we more than doubled in size. We're in the middle of a ton of construction. I decide, because I'm a handy girl, when I signed all the papers, I was like, I'll do some of the painting, I'll do this wainscoting, I'll do this, I'll do that to save some money, because like I'm good with a saw and a drill. Watch out, right?
Yeah.
Like I am not afraid of power tools. I registered for power tools for my wedding.
That's awesome.
So I'm like, I got it. Yeah, and then I found out I was pregnant 10 days into the construction.
Which throws a little bit of a wrench in the
build. Oh yeah,
out.
high change orders all day long, right? Like tens of thousands of dollars of change orders because I can't do the work. Yeah. And like, God bless my husband, he is not a handyman. Like he is an artist and amazing, but like, don't give him a power tool. Something's gonna like get screwed into, like a finger's gonna be missing. It's never good.
So wait, let's backpedal a little bit to when you were deciding to open the restaurant. Like what?
Which side? Like the Trails become the Trails, or
so
Megan's?
You took
when we
over
came over
Megan's,
here.
right?
I did.
I think there's a big part of your story. You took over Megan's. They sold the restaurant to you for $225,000.
Something like that. Way too much.
$225,000. Why was that too much? Like
they misrepresented their sales, to be honest.
Okay. So set it up a little bit. Like so, you at this point, obviously, you know you're going to open your own restaurant. You're going to own your own restaurant.
Yeah.
Why turnkey? What was it about Megan's Cafe?
So Megan's Cafe, it was owned by the same owners that own Country Comfort, which is the restaurant group I grew up in. So for me, it felt like home. Okay. So when I moved back out to East County and I was pregnant with my son, I would come into Megan's Cafe all the time. I grew up babysitting Megan.
Got you.
So her mom owned the restaurant.
So it does feel like home.
Megan was here. Megan worked here. Another one of her girlfriends that I trained when we were all kids, but I was their trainer. She worked here. Tony, who taught me how to do all the catering stuff when I was a wee little human. Excuse me.
You're fine.
Tony worked here. I mean, like literally, it felt like home. The regulars I knew from when I used to wait on them at Country Comfort.
Okay.
Like, so I knew all the people who came in here. I knew more than half of the 8 employees.
So why did they want to get out of the restaurant? What was going on there? Were they just over it? Or?
They were selling. So some of this I'm going to have to be careful about because it's really personal.
Yeah.
So they knew that I wanted to get out of the bar business because I had, a young kiddo. And it's a lot. I was a nursing mom.
Yeah.
And I would work until 4 in the morning, right? Because it was a bar. So I'd, work a night shift.
Inventory afterwards.
Drive, or just, dealing with people, getting people out, making sure everything's shut down. And then I drive home from La Jolla, which is, it's 25 miles door to door. So that's a big drive home. And then I'm like sitting up, like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep. I'm a nursing mom. Like, I'm not going to have everybody in the restaurant industry, I swear, that works nights has like a cocktail to go fall asleep at night, right? Like, I can't do that because my kid's going to wake up and need to be fed.
Yeah.
So I just was like, I can't do this anymore. It doesn't make sense for me.
So you want to stay in the industry, but you want to transition to a morning.
I needed like a more normal hour job, because my son, he's so funny. From the time he was born, he would get up at like 5:30. Like a.m. Like, he's a morning person. Not now that he's a teenager. He's literally like, just go, Mom, let me sleep. Like, okay. But until like a year ago, literally every day, 5:30. Just it's who he is. It's great. Some people are built that way. But when I was making the list of like pros and cons of owning the restaurant, it was like all of these like pros, and then over on the cons list, I wrote super big, it's the morning. Like, I hate the morning. I am a night person.
But you made it. So when you originally came on board, were you just coming on as an employee, or were you like, I'm gonna buy this place?
Oh no. I would never have worked for them again in an employee. She fired me, actually.
Oh wow. So how did she?
She fired me for really good reason. I would have fired myself probably like 6 months before she fired me. She put up with a lot. I was 21. Oh my gosh. Well, so this is the same year that I showed up with fire engine red hair, and this is more than 20 years ago. That was not cool back then. And like, I would go out and party all night and then like roll in, like brew myself a pot of coffee and like just like hop to it but not talk to anybody for a while. Yeah, I was like full board China. And so I was getting sick a lot. But she knew I was getting sick a lot because I was partying all the time.
Little immune system.
Yeah, my immune system was like, you're fired. And so she called me out on it. She's like, this is what's going on. Like, you can't do that. And then I had been sick a lot. I asked for a week off like 2 months in advance, and she said no. And I was a little miffed by that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give you through the holidays because I know how busy it is here. And then I think I need to make my way. Like, I think that this is, we're done then, right? Like, obviously she wasn't happy with my performance. I needed the time off. She wasn't going to give it to me because I'd been sick. Okay. And then I went to Vegas after Thanksgiving to visit my now mother-in-law. And I came home, and I was the on-call because on-calls were still legal then. And somebody, for a total BS reason, called out sick. Like, and I knew it was BS, so I was pissed, so I didn't go in.
Oh, burn.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So I mean, like, I deserved to be fired 100%, like without a doubt. She's like, I'm really sorry. I'm like, it's okay.
Your relationship came back at some point, so you couldn't have been a complete.
No, it totally came back at her daughter's wedding, actually. And then ultimately, I was a regular at Megan's Cafe, and so she had heard that I was looking to change industries, or not industries, but like time frames. Yep. So she said, like, hey, what do you think about this? Ultimately, it was like, we will never be friends again because the way she represented sales and a few other things were just completely not real, and unfortunately put me in a really negative and terrible position financially. So it's not just
this
that
before you took over?
This is when I bought the restaurant. So I not only did I buy the restaurant.
Was it intentional, or do you think it was just naivety? Okay.
No. So here's the thing. This is what I'll say: is don't ever believe anything but tax records. If somebody's telling you these are my tax records, these are my tax records, but we're friends, so I'm going to tell you that this is what I actually walk away with, and this is how I do it.
So, the words of wisdom: if you're taking over a restaurant, get tax records.
Get tax records. Believe what's on paper.
Get something to back up what's being said. Did you get any kind of documentation, or is it all just off word?
I got some, but not enough. Okay. And not the right kind. So I think tax records are where it's at because that's what you're telling the IRS you're walking away with. So you can make a decision based on that. And also, if you are going to buy a restaurant, I would say don't allow them to tell you how to run it once they've left. Right? Like, there are some things that were put into the contract that I felt like were care, right, for guests and that kind of thing, that I really realized later were points of control and hope for failure. Because she took back paper, right? I didn't get an outright loan. She took back paper, so I was paying her off with interest.
Okay.
And what that meant is that if I faulted or if I didn't follow her rules, which some of them were outlandish, then she was just waiting for me to fail so she could take the
So
restaurant back.
knowing what you know now, what would this relationship, how should it have looked?
I would have gotten money from somewhere else. I never would have let somebody else take paper. I would
Okay.
have gotten money from the outside and just paid that person off completely, got them off my lease, got them
Yep.
completely out. Like, that's the other thing, is renegotiate a lease. If your landlord believes in you as the purchaser,
Yep.
then they're gonna believe in you as the purchaser.
Yeah.
So they'll go into a new lease situation, which was great because I only had, I think I had 4 years left of that original lease. So I was able to sit down, I had 7 years left of the lease.
That you
which,
took over.
That I took over, which, I mean, from a sales
Was it a
perspective,
10-year
that's
lease
good.
originally?
It was, I had 2 years left on the 5 plus another 5-year
Gotcha.
option, right? So, but the thing is I was able to say, well, hey, I'm going to lease this side. So I'd like to sit down and renegotiate.
And she's
whole
saying
new
this
lease.
side as in when you rebranded to the
To
Trails.
the Trails, right. So I expanded. I added another 1,400 square feet.
Gotcha.
Sorry, we always say like that side, the old
Yeah.
side and the new side. So this is the new side.
So maybe we should preface, when you started, what was the square footage of the restaurant, of Megan's?
1,000 square feet, electric
Cozy.
only.
Yeah.
38
cozy.
seats, cozy. I was claustrophobic. I couldn't breathe. I'd be like, where am I going to sit to work on my laptop? And so I would sit in my car in the back
Yeah.
because there was literally no other place.
But it
for me
sounds
to
like in the
work.
first couple of years, from like at least 2007 to like 2009, you were profitable. You were doing well.
we were killing it.
Enough so that you believed in expansion, but you were also smart enough to say, well, we shouldn't go to a new location. We shouldn't open another Megan's or open an.
Yeah.
We
So
want-
I'll
let's just-
tell you how it went.
Yeah,
It's like why we
please.
made the decision to make
Yeah.
it. So we started right. We were killing it. It was great. We recognized the concept was really good for a small space, right? Lunch counter, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. And then in '08 is when we started looking, and I said, you know what? My dad and I had these talks. My dad plays the market, right? So he tends to like look further out than most people because he's looking for trends. He's looking for futures. Like, so he has this deep base there, and he was like, we're going to have a downturn. We have to be careful. I said,
Yeah.
so, okay, so, what does being careful look like? Is being careful like getting into a new space, or is being careful going like, we have a great following here. There are more people in this neighborhood. If we can just figure out how to reach them,
Get
why don't
more
we just
people
expand
in,
into
yeah.
this one space? I feel like that's a lot safer.
Yep.
He was like, bet. So like, we were like, yeah, that sounds really good. We were able to renegotiate a really good lease, a much better lease situation for us actually. So okay, well, this makes so much more sense. Like, we know that the market is rocky, but we had no idea how bad it was going to be.
So we're talking just before the economic downturn,
Right. We signed the papers in Q4 of '08 for a Q1 '09 start date. And so, of course, like literally the entire world market crashed
Yeah,
at,
just before the
January.
recession.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it was the worst situation possible.
Yeah, so I mean, even just staying, even surviving that is a testament to something, in my opinion.
Well, and then at that point, like what we didn't consider, and I don't even know that we could have known that, is that when it comes to demographic, this neighborhood lost very few houses to foreclosures because the people in this neighborhood tend to be thoughtful and financially sound and not overextended, which means that they were thoughtful about how they were spending their money during that time, which means they stopped going out to eat.
Yeah. But even though your prices were, one of the things that was the draw from what I gathered was that you had really approachable prices. Like,
I don't think they were approachable. They were stupid. They were so low, they were stupid. Let's be really, really honest. They were like absurdly low.
But those people that were going out were probably coming here because that was the most affordable place to go.
I think that
I wonder
definitely
if that played into it.
I think that was like a volume driver for
Yeah.
us, and it was definitely like the Monday through Friday.
I'm not
filler
suggesting
driver.
giving your food away, but I'm saying like during a time of recession, I wonder if because of the timing that it served you to be
It did.
affordable.
It did, and it served us to be affordable with our retirees, because the thing is if you can capture that retiree demographic, and if you make your menu smart, like you have to be really thoughtful about the way you engineer the food that you're going to offer your retirees, and if you can do that high gross profit margin and high like percentage, right? The cost of goods, like you've got, low cost of goods, high gross profit margin, you can hit that one quadrant, and you offer those items only at this great price to your seniors, then you're going to win too. Like, you just have to think about it and be really smart on the back end and engineer your menu well. And then maybe, like I'm making $5 at a time with my senior meals, and then they're only paying $1 for a coffee that they drink 7 coffees.
Yeah.
Well, now it's more than that, but It's fine though. You know why?
Why?
Because they come 7 days a week.
Yep.
I
They have
don't
routines. Yeah.
make money based on
One visit.
per person average. I make money based on volume. So the only thing I want to do is change seats and make sure that butts are in seats. That's what I tell these kids all day long. I'm like, hey guys, how do we make money? They're like, butts and seats. I'm like, yeah, so let's get the butts in the seats.
Well, you only have so much real estate, and it does, you have to make the most of that real estate in the time you have.
And that's the thing, is that the retirees fill the in-between times. They don't come when the people that are working come. They don't come when the hikers come. They come during the times that are traditionally slow.
Yeah.
One, they don't want to deal with the noise or like all the crazy. And two, they eat at different times. They have breakfast at 7 a.m. and they have lunch at 10:30.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Like if people aren't tapping into that, they're insane. Like, and they're rad humans.
Yeah.
Like they add so much to our days.
Oh my gosh. I
oh
bet.
my gosh.
Yeah. So when did things start to turn? When did you go from crushing it to being a
To
little
dying.
to, like having to like call Restaurant Impossible? What changed?
What changed? Well, we grew, so we had double the rent.
Yeah.
And we
So
thought that we were going to be able to, so we had this increase in
So your
just
expenses
overhead.
were going up, but your revenue coming in would just stay the same.
So the revenue coming in went up slightly, but it didn't go up enough to cover all the costs.
So your labor expenses went up, I'm assuming, so you had to cover more ground.
So our labor expenses went up, front of the house and back of the house. We also took a huge increase in labor because I was pregnant and didn't expect to be. We had tons of change orders. So we had tens of thousands of dollars and increased, costs to construction that we didn't expect to have. And then I ended up having a difficulty during my pregnancy that required me to step away from the restaurant like 3 or 4 days a week.
Do you think that maybe the consistency suffered at that point?
No, we had really great leadership on the floor. So I had a really great front of the house manager and had a really great back of the house manager. And they worked hard to make sure that we were growing. We just didn't have anybody marketing.
Yeah.
We had terrible signage. We didn't have anything like on the ground, like things that I would normally do.
But you're bringing in, like, when you're not here to bring somebody in, like you're probably looking at an additional, $30,000 a year?
Back then, I think I spent probably 45 that year between the front of the house and the back of the house.
Yeah, that's a big expense.
So much
that's
money.
A huge expense.
When you add that to having this new, loan cost that
Which
had to go
I saw
out.
was around 275,000, 225,000.
It was like 275
plus the 225 to whatever it was that you
to start.
So
it's up over 5.
Yep.
So then I'm paying interest on this loan because I couldn't afford more than interest at the time. Interest on the loan, paying these people, and then I'm not even here to help us grow volume, right? Like, so we're maintaining, but we're not growing because I'm not around. And then I go out, have a baby, and then I come back when she's 2 weeks old, and then I get to it. So I start working 100 hours a week. And after a year of that, I almost die.
Oh my gosh.
Because who can keep that up for a year, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
actually,
And how do you stay positive?
you know what? I think that's just like in my DNA. It's like who I am.
Yeah.
I am the kind of person that's always looking for I'm always like looking for the lesson. I'm always looking for the thing like to grow by. I'm always looking for like that thing that I go like, okay, well that sucked, but now I know this. So I can avoid that going forward, or I can teach somebody about that later. Like that's really what I'm always looking for. What's the lesson? How do I grow from it? How do I pass that on?
Okay.
Like those are always the things that I'm looking for. So I think just keeping my focus in those spaces keeps me positive. It does not mean that I haven't spent days crying on this floor where I've just been like, like
every entrepreneur has those peaks and those valleys though. Like one
it
day
happens.
you're going to take over the world. The next day you don't have an ounce of effort left, and it's like those peaks and valleys. But
what I do have is a rad team. So like whenever I hit a valley, like they're all around me to pick me up.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is that I learned from Restaurant Impossible how to be vulnerable with the people around me. And I used to think that vulnerability could be weakness.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's some things I thought like I really needed to keep like close and that I didn't want to burden anybody else with. And there's still some of that, right? Like there's certain things that like you, in order to run your business well, you have to keep things close to the cuff sometimes. But it's also important to say like, hey guys, this is where we need to go. This is where we are. And this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I need your help.
So why is being vulnerable not weakness?
Being vulnerable isn't weakness because it's just authenticity.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a different way to look at it. Like if you're just being authentic about your experience, then there's nothing weak about that, right? Like you're saying like today is a hard day for me.
When you roll over and expose your weaknesses, think about a dog, right? That rolls over, and that what they're doing is they're exposing their weaknesses. They're showing you your belly. I'm
and
not
you
a
love
threat.
them more for
I'm
that.
not a threat.
Yeah.
You know, like this when you show your vulnerability, when you show where you are, it increases that level of trust, right? And it's so powerful, and it's a really great tool to elevate that trust and to garner motivation around you to rally the troops, right? Like, this is where I am. This is what we need. So that's kind of, was that what your attempt was with reaching out to Restaurant Impossible?
Oh God, my attempt at reaching out to Restaurant Impossible was like just like pure and utter like.
What else?
Like, what else is there? Like, I was groping in the dark at that point. Like, I really felt like I tried everything I knew.
Yeah.
We'd just done everything we possibly could. At this point, we'd already had a failed dinner service or 2 failed dinner services that we'd gone through. I'd worked with a restaurant consultant and paid him way too much money, hoping that he could help me with it. I mean, like, I tried everything. And then you were
also, sorry, not to butt in, but you also were paying out of pocket your staff, right? So you were going further in debt to your father because it was coming out of he was
putting in $3,000 to $5,000 a month.
Wow.
Because we were just short on costs, and so I was making sure my staff stayed paid. I didn't pay myself for 3 or 4 months, and so when I reached out to Restaurant Impossible, they had an ad in the UT, the Union Tribune, our local paper. It was like 3 or 4 sentences, Robert Irvine looking for failing restaurants for his new show. If you're interested, this is where you apply. Literally, that's it. Not very many things. And so he had that out there, and one of my regulars, she brought that in and like left it here for me and like had circled failing and wrote not true, which was so sweet. She had no idea, right? And she had told me like, hey, I used to work in PR. Like, this is a really good opportunity for you. You should do this. And I was like, I'd taken it and I put it behind my computer screen. I was like, I don't know, like nobody knows. Yeah. So what happened, like the impetus to get me to actually apply was that December, the electricity was turned off at my house, and I had an infant.
Yeah.
And
it's not a good situation.
I mean, I couldn't take care of my family's basics. Like, that was the whole reason of having the restaurant, right? Was to care for my family.
Exactly.
And so I couldn't even do the basic things. And I thought, you know what? I need help. So I'm going to reach out. I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, what do you think about this? He's Chinese, and like doing the whole like money thing in public is not cool. So that was, or at least not when you're failing. Like if you're Chinese and you're like doing well, it's like you show everybody. Yeah. So, so he was like, he's also very like private and reserved. So he was like, why not? When he said why not, I was like, oh, okay. So I like, sent in my like 12-page, like forever long. I was like, literally, I don't have time for this. I have so many things to do. My application online, and lo and behold, like a few days later, I get a call from a producer, and we start talking. I found out later because she and I have stayed friends all this time.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. She is a rad human being. I found out later that like there was a question like, tell us something we wouldn't know about you otherwise. I put something on there about like being a B-girl and like having a tattoo shop and all this stuff, and she was like, so that's why I called you, because that was interesting. I figured I needed to meet you. That's cool. And then when she came here to scout it, she was like, and then when I met you, she was like, of course we had to come here, but I didn't really know what we were going to do because it wasn't like the formula for their show.
Well, that's the one thing, like I've like knock on what they do. They help a lot of people, and I want to make sure I identify that, but you see it a lot, like a lot of the, not just the Restaurant Impossible, but other bar rescue, these shows, they go into these restaurants and you can see the writings on the wall. It's not an issue with the food or the operation. I mean, those things, ultimately it comes down to the people. It's an issue with culture. And you were unique in the sense where he came in here, he tried the food, he saw everything was clean, and you guys were running a tight operation, but there's just a few little things that weren't like glaring, and he had to like dig for them. Yeah. But I think you're one of the few examples where they come in and the framework, the foundation's there. Like because you guys had the right people, you had the right culture, and you had the experience, and you were kind of a different situation. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we also needed a lot of marketing. Like that's just real. We ran out of money. So what were the key things when he came, when Robert came in, and what things did he identify as being what was causing the issues you were having? Pricing, like our price point was way too low. 100% right on that. And one of the interesting things that he did was give us he gave me a way of thinking about raising prices, because I was always hesitant to raise prices across the whole menu, especially with our seniors. Like I was super protective of them. And
he just gave me an opportunity to think about it differently. He's like, so you take your top 4 sellers, you raise those $1, and this is how much more money you're gonna make. And he was like $30,000.
And I'll link to the shows. I'll try to, at least. I'm not sure because it's not a blog, but
oh no, you can't. Like you can
it's
do
on
it
Amazon.
through Amazon. Yeah, that's the only way.
Yeah, it's like $1.99 for an episode or something like that.
They're protected.
If you want to watch the episode, something like taking those 4 items, right, and charging, and so you take your 4 top producers, right? You charge $1 each on one of them, and that difference is like it was close to like $40,000.
It was like 30 something. Yeah.
Didn't we identify like the cost of you to outsource to replace yourself was right around that? Like.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's going to immediately cover costs, right? So, there's all these other things that come with that. So then you're talking about like where I was at was like, okay, if I do a menu change, I also have to pay for printing. I have to do this. I have to manage perception. So the beauty of having a TV show is that, one, everybody got to see me vulnerable.
Yes.
Everybody knew what position we were in. They knew that we weren't doing well, which I'd hidden that from everybody. So now they know that they want to be on our team, and they understand why we changed our menu. Because managing that perception would have been possible, but really difficult before that.
Yeah.
And especially with like the expectations that had been set here before I owned the restaurant. So it was a really awesome way to kind of publicly say, like, we have to do things differently because we care enough that we want to be around.
And like you weren't, like you said, you weren't only just vulnerable with your team, but you were open up and you were out of nowhere vulnerable with the world. And when you
that was crazy.
But when you're vulnerable and you can find a way to do it gracefully, to open up and share gracefully, you opened yourself up to the support of your community, and you have a reputation in your community. You're likable, you're lovable. People, people cared for you because it was so clear that you were caring for them, taking care of your older your senior citizens. Like that stuff comes around, and it was so clear that your community came out to support you, and
they continue to.
Yes.
Like that's the wild thing to me is like people have rallied around us and they continue to, and here's the thing about community. Like community is not necessarily spatial anymore, right? Like we have a different sense of community now. It's not just like what's here in these, 3 square miles around us, but our community is across the world because of Food Network, because of Restaurant Impossible. I have people come in from like other countries that have seen this show, and they happen to be in San Diego for something else, and they make it a point to stop here because they want to be, physically part of this.
They want to be a part of what the experience.
Yes,
right?
Like today I had a family of 3 come in. Now we recorded this in 2011, and this family of 3 comes in today, 8 years later. And they're like, we're so excited to finally be here. We saw you on Restaurant Impossible. And so that continues to grow. Our community continues to expand because of this. It's so special.
Oh, that's so cool.
I mean, it's everything.
Was there anything else? I know he mentioned he was fighting to have you guys do a dinner shift. There was some resistance there because the whole purpose of opening this restaurant was to get away from dinner. Yeah. Like you wanted to have a new routine, a new life. Yeah. You ended up doing that for a short while. For the past 2 years, you haven't been doing. Is that right?
Yeah. So we actually we had a dinner service when we first expanded into the Trails in 2009. Yeah. And we did 2 different styles of dinner service, and we did it. I think we did it 6 days a week, and it tanked, and it tanked. It tanked for a real reason. It tanked because it did not get the attention it needed. Yeah. Because there were 3 of us running the kitchen with brand new babies. None of us wanted to be here at night. Like that was just the reality. And the first dinner service we did, we put our heart and soul into it. And so Kevin and I worked together. I was talking about earlier, Kevin was like this great food mentor. He was a trained chef. He came in and he and I were able to talk food, and I didn't have that classic training. I just learned on my line, and I learned on Alberto's line. And so I was able to learn techniques and learn
the foundation.
Learn a foundation from him, and he was never judgmental of my inexperience, only excited to feed my curiosity.
That's so cool.
And it was so much fun to be with somebody that I felt like I could just be genuinely...
Say that again. He wasn't
judgmental of my inexperience. He was only excited to feed my curiosity.
That's a huge lesson right there, because I feel like we can get so in this industry, we can get so our nose up in the air when you don't know what that is. lose that shit because it's just not serving anybody. You
Not
don't wanna-
anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just be excited to give this person that new knowledge and to be the person to feed them that new knowledge, right? That's a privilege to be able to do that. It's a little shift in mentality that is so powerful. Sorry, keep going.
No, totally. I mean, and it's interesting though, because of all of my years of cooking, like, I mean, I literally grew up in kitchens and I've been like using a knife since I was 5 and like, you know, like sauteing since I was like 7, like do whatever, like cooking on the fire. So I was able to like keep up with him, and I think he was surprised. You know what I mean? Like we could cook on the line together. We cooked dinners together forever, you know, and we kind of like created this really like fun food atmosphere where we'd be like, let's try this, let's do that, you know, like, and he would be able to create in a way that in other jobs he wasn't allowed to. You know what I mean? Because let's keep this narrow focus. So at dinner we just like went off. So we ended up creating what I would call a fine diner menu, and it was too much. So it was too much too soon. So there's an area of San Diego. There's like North Park and Little Italy, and it's like where all the like the fun dining at night happens. We had a North Park Little Italy menu in 2007 or 2009 in San Carlos. Nobody knew what to do with it.
Wasn't ready for it.
No, we were. I mean, we were years ahead of our time and 10 miles too far east. Like out here, that kind of menu is only happening with any level of success now. So because of that, we were like, that hurt my soul because we loved
well, you
what
said
we
it
were
like
doing.
we failed. Like that's even like when Robert was talking to you, like, we failed. Like,
no, we failed so hard.
We failed. We don't want to go back there. Like you almost felt like you were still like burnt from that. Like you, the scars were still there and they weren't quite healed yet. I was
burnt because I put my heart and soul into that menu. Like it was everything. It was what I knew to be true about food, right? Like it's what I cared about. It was my ego. Right? I learned a valuable lesson between when Kevin and I did the dinner services together and when I did dinner service, you know, through Restaurant Impossible, which was my ego means this much when it comes to profitability. It means nothing to me. There are probably 5.
From that?
Well, I want to know what's very simply. I care about making money so I can pay for my kids to go to college, right? Like that's it. It's a very easy formula for me now. So I go, okay, I hate hash out of a can. I think that stuff's disgusting. It smells like dog food when I open it. People love it. I sell a ton of it. Okay, it stays on my menu. Like it offends me to cook it when I'm on the line, but I don't care.
It's what like, your people want, you know?
It's all about my market. So if my market demands this, I'm going to deliver. So Robert Irvine brought us this dinner menu. I was resistant to the dinner menu. I was resistant to doing dinner, but you know what? We did it. And within a week, 5 items fell off the menu. Why? Because it didn't work for this market. I wasn't going to throw another case of heirloom tomatoes away. Wrecked my heart.
Were you resentful when he came and said you have to go to nights?
No, okay, listen, because TV isn't always what TV looks like. I was resentful 3 weeks before that when they sent me the order list that I needed to order from the, you know, food purveyor. And I literally called the producer and I was like, I thought I told you no dinner. I thought I had this conversation with you. I was crystal clear with this about you. I'm like, this is dinner food. I'm not ordering the food. You can't make me order the food. She's like, well, then we won't come. I was like, I hate you so much right now. So like, I was super bitter. I had a couple weeks to get over it. And I was like, you know what, whatever. If this is what I have to do this show, we can always stop doing it. But
I think another lesson, you put your ego aside. Like, you know, you thought about the greater good in the situation. Like you knew that this was going to be a PR.
It was worth the opportunity.
I'd say stunt, but in a sense, you know, like you knew that you were going to draw a lot of attention onto your business that you need. So
I had no idea how much attention it was going to get us immediately because our show was different yet again from many other shows because we ended up on the most popular morning radio show. So that reaches tens of thousands of people every morning in their car. So we did that radio show.
With Robert, he brought you on the show to create hype, right?
Right, exactly. And it did. So we weren't busy 3 months later when it aired. We were like stupid, insane. I can't breathe. I hired 13 people 5 days later. 13 people 5 days later.
Wow.
Busy.
That's crazy.
So we shot Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I shut it all down on Wednesday. I was like, I'm sorry, we need to sleep. We're taking a day. Also, I didn't have a single recipe for a single item on the dinner menu.
Oh my gosh.
And
so how's your voice doing right now, by the way?
I know I'm raspy. I'm sorry.
You're
it's
good.
just going to get raspier. It's fine. I'm going to take a drink of water.
I'm looking down. We're at like almost an hour and 15 minutes of recording time now.
Talky.
We haven't even gotten into what has happened since then? How? Because you've continued. You mean you grew initially, right? And I got here at like 10 a.m. this morning. And I was like, there's no way I'm going in there right now.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, because I wanted to. It was jammed. Granted, it's Saturday morning, right? It's going to be probably one of your busiest days, I'm assuming.
It is. It is one of our busiest days. It's it rivals Sunday, but Sunday we do 20% more business. So we had an hour wait at 10 a.m.
Yeah. So you mean this show aired 2011.
Yeah.
Here we are 8 years later, still going strong and growing.
Strong and growing. Yeah. So we killed dinner. So we did dinner until it'll be 3 years ago this January. Basically, labor went up. So labor went from $8 an hour to $11 an hour.
Minimum wage, right?
Yeah, minimum wage, $8 an hour to $11 an hour. And so here's the other thing: is that a rising tide raises all boats. It's not just my front of the house servers that get that raise, and the cooks and everyone else are like, hey yo,
what about us?
They went up, we're going up, you know, and that's right. That is fair.
Absolutely.
And that is good. And I honestly don't have a problem with a living wage in the state of California. I think that, labor going up is great, but I also know that causes inflammation. That's what it feels like. Inflation. Yeah. So, and that's fine. We deal with it. But the reality of that was that instantly dinner went from being profitable enough for me to pay for a sous chef and pay for an assistant manager full time to help manage those shifts to me being like, oh, wow, yeah, that's not really going to work. So I went from having those two people, I had to lay off my sous chef and lay off my whole dinner staff.
Why did it stop working?
Because that's how much it costs. I mean, you're talking $1 an hour across things. So if we had any shortfalls at dinner, breakfast always buffered that. Breakfast and lunch, right? Because we were so profitable for breakfast and lunch. And really, ultimately, the year that I was looking at it, it gave me the opportunity to look at it just from a numbers perspective and say, why would I jeopardize the hard work that we do from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. where we make this much profit and we have this much volume to save this? What's the point? And this thing that I hate.
I was just gonna say, like, the other thing that's glaringly obvious is that your heart wasn't in dinner.
No,
your heart it was strictly a profitability thing.
It was.
And when you chase money, it doesn't fulfill you.
And when I chase money, it doesn't fulfill me. When somebody says, what does success look like to you? Money is not a big part of the equation. Money is important because it allows you to do stuff.
Take care of people.
Right? And take care of people and like live life the way it feels fulfilling to you, right? But
at this point,
I'm not motivated by like a dollar amount in the bank. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just not. It wasn't what I needed.
In 2011, you needed it to.
I needed it to like pay my electric bill.
Exactly. 2019, when you've increased your sales for breakfast and lunch so much that you can. Why do
Yeah. And then I'm able to focus on the day parts that actually perform. And so, despite losing an entire day part, right? Like I lost dinner service. That's even on slower nights. It was still a decent amount of money because my per person average is way higher. Yeah. So even losing that, I never lost $1 of sales. Wow. That tells you something. Well, I was able to take my energy and focus and ideas and everything and training, all of that, put it into my breakfast and lunch staff and into my breakfast and lunch service and into my breakfast and lunch marketing and just grow it. So we've actually had bigger years of growth since we got rid of dinner than we ever have had in the past.
And one thing that you mentioned, we started this conversation by staying in your lane, right? Picking a lane and doing one thing better than everybody else, and owning that one thing. So the other thing that has come from getting rid of dinner services, having that additional bandwidth to focus on marketing, like you said, to really promote. So what steps did you take to start promoting your breakfast and lunch? We haven't even talked about you being on
Food Network Star.
Food Network Star. Sure.
I know. Weird.
Do you have a hard stop? I want to. It's almost 3:30 right now. Okay,
I'm
cool.
Good. Actually, I'll just double check. I'm solid.
Sweet.
Kids are safe. We're good.
All right. I won't abuse your time too much, but if you're willing to go, I'm willing to listen.
I am. If other people want to still listen.
Sure.
Don't leave.
So the last question was, what things did you start to do to market your business to have that level of continued growth?
I hired a guy.
Oh, nice.
I outsourced. Corey's my homie. I'm so grateful for him.
What up, Corey? What did Corey teach you? How did he?
Corey taught me that if I hire somebody who's good at marketing, then I don't have to think a lot about it.
Yeah, it takes a tribe to raise a restaurant.
It does. And Corey and I, it took us about a year to get on the same page and for him to understand our brand, you know, because a brand and culture are complex things. And no matter how many times we met, we could talk about like, you know, ideas and mantras and ways of seeing things. Like for him to actually express that in a photo and express that in a tagline and express that on a poster for an LTO or something else, it took time. And it also took time. We did. I had to distill it, and I'd be like, I need you to show up and be here and work here for a day a week. I know what this is like, and hang out with my crew. And one day, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
And then one day, Corey says, you haven't let me in all the way. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you haven't let me into the inner circle. Like, I can't really know you and your brand. This is your brand. He told me, like, this restaurant's more about you than the restaurant is about itself. So you have to let me in so I can do my job.
Well, I always say, like, the difference between a brand and a concept is a brand is an extension of who you are. A concept is something that you create that's separate from you, right?
Yeah.
Keep going.
Sometimes I wish this was a concept, so I could just come one time. It's fine. I love that it's brand. So it was such a good wake up for me. I'm like, oh yeah, I really do need to like let you in, and you know, like he just became like the homie Corey, and that dude shows up so much. Like he shows up at every marketing event, every time I do TV, every time I do anything, he's there. So, and not because he has to be. It's not even in our contract.
I want to pull out the nuggets from that real quick.
All right.
Outsource.
I love that word, by the way. It's one of my favorite words.
Nuggets?
Nuggets.
Oh yeah, nuggets of knowledge right here. Dropping bombs of knowledge, nuggets of knowledge. So, but you outsource. You found somebody who was in their lane, and you brought them onto your team.
I did.
And the other thing is you got to find out who you are, because your restaurant is an extension of who you are. So you need to learn to identify who you are. You need to distill who you are, so you can better communicate those unique selling propositions. Right.
Yeah.
And he helps you do that. So,
yeah, absolutely. And he really is an expert at that. So he was able to sort of move through it.
So what next? What next? After you had somebody there who you outsourced to do what they do best, and you let him in, you distilled your message, your unique selling propositions, your brand. What was next?
So we got better at all of our marketing across the board. So from storefront, signage, hired an architect that could help me, kind of re-envision the storefront. And then I really thought about like, okay, how are we offering LTOs? What time frames are we going to offer them in? A limited time offer. Okay. So, specials. Okay. So how are we going to offer those? What is it going to look like? We hired a graphic artist who is consistently creating all of our artwork now. So now we have a look and a feel, and it's just an extension of who we are. It looks like our brand. It is our brand. And then, making sure that we're using our 4 walls marketing as much as we possibly can. 4 walls marketing is everything inside of these 4 walls, right? So
my favorite type of marketing.
Me too. I think it's really effective because you're just educating your fans.
It's also the least expensive type of marketing.
Yes, I agree. And one that I think you can measure it a little bit more. So we make sure that we have things like like table tents, but we have to kind of balance that because we already have so much stuff on the table. So we just kind of like play with things. We've reorganized stuff. We've done more merch because Corey's helping to drive that, which is so amazing. So that again, merchandise is 4 walls marketing, but it's also an extension of us in somebody else's home.
Are now wearing your brand.
They're wearing our brand. They're they're drinking from our cups. And
so what things are you doing to get people to share the swag, to promote the swag? Are you doing anything along those lines?
No, Corey's always pushing me. So like these are things I have to make decisions about, because also like shipping, like we don't have a direct direct ship, right, where somebody else can ship it for us, and so shipping's kind of expensive. So we're having a hard time like figuring out like, what do I do with mugs, because they don't ship well, they're bulky, whatever. So
there's also companies today now that literally serve as like logistics. Right? So like you go, none of them are coming to mind right now, but you can go and like design a mug, design a t-shirt, and then basically once you're cool with what those designs are, when somebody clicks to order, the company that you like they'll handle the so you never actually have
it's
to
a direct to
ship
like or drop ship companies. Maybe. My brother's involved in all of this. So, but doing it from mugs is harder. Doing it with like other things is a little bit easier. Like shirts, it's easier to do that. Like I can do that with shirts. We actually have that set up for the shirts that we sell. So there's things like that. So some of that stuff in here, and then we have all of our social media marketing. And so the way we do that, Corey manages all of that. We do Instagram. I think he still does Twitter. I don't really care about Twitter. Sorry, Twitter people.
I think Twitter is kind of fading.
Yeah. And then he manages Facebook because I don't live in the place of the book of faces.
I don't either live on social media. It's a chore for me for sure. Some people love it. Bless their souls.
Yeah, I like Instagram. I manage my own, like the SPK Cooks, my public Instagram account. I manage that. Corey manages my public Facebook account, and I'm really transparent with people about that. Like my friends will come in and be like, "I saw your post on Facebook," and I was like, "Girl, that wasn't me." So
well, I think it's good to be transparent about it, and to be. I mean, we're getting to a point now where there's just too much. I think expected from a restaurant operator to wear all these hats, you know, and it's not. I think. Corey said something that's really powerful. You gotta let me in.
Yeah.
And as long as you let whoever's doing those things into your inner circle,
yeah.
and they're a part of the brand because they're you're not outsourcing a separate identity.
Yeah.
You're basically just hiring a new team member. Basically.
Exactly. Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
you gotta
He's
think
part of
of
our
it like
management team.
Exactly.
100%. Like we call him our marketing manager.
That has to be within.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the key things that people lose when they outsource. There's like, oh, like, you know, you put together a few images and keep our Instagram fresh.
It's so much bigger than that.
It has to be.
He's speaking with my voice.
Yes.
I'm paying him to speak as me.
Yeah.
So like, and there always has to be this accountability. So for a long time it was like, hey, send me what you're going to post. Like you can't post until I approve it.
Yeah.
And now we're at a point where like we're at a good clip and
him.
I trust him. He knows what I'm looking for. But I'm still watching.
Yeah.
You know, and so if there's something that's a little off, like it can be 2 words.
So was
like, hey, change this to that, and he gets it done.
Was this all going down before or after you went back on the Food Network for the Food Network Star, next Food Network?
Oh my gosh! Oh, I hired Corey after Food Network Star for sure.
Okay, well I'm sure
because I wasn't even on social media until after that.
You used to wearing those wearable mics.
I am. I'm so used to wearing like a TV mic, right? A little lav mic right here.
Stacey's speed bagging my microphone right now.
So yeah, I didn't hire Corey until after that because I didn't do social media at all, like in any way, shape, or form, except for a Facebook account for the restaurant because somebody who worked for Facebook, who's ended up being a really great friend, she was in charge of what's it called? Oh my gosh. I can't even remember what it's called. Anyways, her name's Sarah. She's super badass. So she was on the executive team for Facebook, and her parents live in the neighborhood.
Nice.
And so she was like, you need a Facebook page? I was like, I don't
You want to do it?
I said that, and she was like, yes. So she set it up for me, and then there it was. And I like kind of did stuff on it every once in a while when I'd be like, oh, I should log into that thing. And so anyhow, I ended up on Food Network Star. So what happened is I was on the 50th.
We were the 4th out of 12 people. You made it to the 4th cut, right?
I did. I made it to the last cut. I was on all 11 episodes.
Oh, wow.
So
that's great. I mean, you didn't win, but at the same time, that's 4 episodes of promotion.
Oh no, 11 episodes.
11 episodes. Sorry,
I was on every single episode. I won 9 out of 11 competitions. It's cool.
That's pretty awesome.
It was kind of amazing.
Yeah.
It was a really great time. You know what it was? It was a time for me to learn about myself.
Like
in
a
way
you learn
I never
about
had.
yourself?
I learned that I am really good at playing games. I'm like, oh, you have a game? This is what we have to do? That's how you win? I got this.
You're good at listening to the rules.
I am good at listening to the rules and also listening to the rules because whatever rules are missing, like I'd find the holes.
The loop.
I'd find the loop every time.
Nice.
They're like, oh, you have to make a cheesecake and you only have this much time, or you have to make this. And I'm like, I want to make the cheesecake. They're like, you only have this much time. I'm like, hey, because I know how the schedule goes. I'm like, are we going to break for lunch after we're done? They're like, yeah. I'm like, can we ask you how to handle our food in any way we want at the break? They're like, yeah. I was like, awesome. Cool, because I'm gonna make a cheesecake and y'all need to put that shit in the freezer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so like it's about being smarter than the guy next to you. It's not about being a better cook necessarily or about being the better host. Ultimately, it was.
You see that all the time on these shows. I don't watch a ton of the shows, but so many times people get disqualified because they didn't follow the rules. And like, oh, like you didn't, that's delicious, but sorry, like you broke the rules and the cut.
I'm really good at following the rules, and I'm really good at breaking them.
Yeah. Ooh.
That's it. Like, you have to be able to do both. You have to know which rules you can break or where you can bend that nobody else is looking.
It sounds like you're friends with Bill Belichick.
I don't know.
Patriots,
who's that? Sorry.
Patriots head coach.
I suck
who's
at
always
football.
accused of being a cheater.
Oh, no. So, like, it's not about cheating. It's about knowing... Like, it's about knowing solidly what are the rules.
It's creating a slight edge.
And then knowing where you find your edge.
Yeah.
But I think that's a way you win in anything.
Exactly.
Right? Where's my edge in business? Okay, my edge in business?
Personality.
It is. It's about, but it's not personality for just me. It's
Yeah.
about personality for my whole team. People are like, you have the best employees. How do you hire them? And I say, you know what? I don't hire skills. I hire people because I can't fix that by the time they get here.
I love it.
Are you a genuine person? Do you care about other people?
Yeah.
I can teach, don't know. I can never fix, don't care.
Yeah. Is there? I mean, I can't believe I think we're on the timeline. We're like 2013, 2014 now.
2013, Food Network star, super
Yeah.
amazing experience. Don't win. Come home. You ready for this? Damaris Phillips, who's the most amazing human and did win, and I'm so stoked that it was her. She was filming her first week of, the show that she won having. And I had just come home from traveling because, when you do that, you get like tons of opportunities to travel and cook for different people and be in different places. So I was on the road 2-3 weeks out of the month after that. I mean, like I was constantly traveling. It was awesome, but also hard because I had little kids. So I come home from a trip and I literally just pulled into my driveway, and my manager at the time, she calls and she was like, the wall is mushy. Like, what do you mean the wall is mushy? What does that mean? She's like, we just like put a foot through a wall. And I'm like, I need you to get a knife and cut that wall open. What? Get a steak knife and saw.
Yeah.
So much water.
Oh my gosh.
So a pipe had burst.
Oh man.
And we had a catastrophic flood. So I lost on the other side, the original side of the restaurant, from 15 feet in, all the way through the entire, dining area, through the entire service station, my dish pit, and my walk-in.
Wow.
So at one point, you could stand almost at the front door and see out to the back dock.
Wow.
It was
Insurance?
catastrophic. It was the literal best insurance experience that anyone could ever ask for.
Wow.
I know people are always like, oh, insurance. I'm like, I don't know how or why, but I am forever grateful for the insurance experience I had. You know what? I went to him and I said, I just need to know that I can put this back together and then I can pay my team. I don't care about the profitability I'm losing. I need to know you're going to pay my team. I know you can't pay them any more than the tips that they claimed, right? Like they get paid based on their history of what they're making, but I need to know they're going to get paid. These are real people's lives. It's not just mine. I had 20 something employees at the time. And he comes back with, all right. So and I was super chill during I was chill as in I was crying a lot, but
as chill as one can be.
As chill as one could be when you've lost your restaurant and you're down, you're not making any money, and all these people still have to get paid, right?
So which element of your insurance did you have that allowed you to recover from this? Like what parts of do you remember the type of insurance you had?
God, it was my umbrella coverage, and I had a
Lost
line
wages
on there
maybe?
for lost wages. And so
There's
I think that making sure that you check line items on your insurance because you're going to have a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Not because you're hoping you don't have that one. Know it's going to happen to you at some point.
Yep.
Whether it's a flood or a fire or now they have EPLI coverage, in case you have an employment, issue and you need to be able to defend yourself in court, and you can get coverage for that. There's just so many different ways to get coverage.
Yeah.
And an ounce of prevention is totally worth it. It goes a really long way. And so I had great coverage, and I pretty much maximized it during that time. I mean, we were out an absurd amount of money. I was down for 7 weeks.
Man. So did you get that the lost revenue covered too?
They did cover the lost revenue
these
too.
Are big things to have. So I did a whole episode. I can't remember. Forgive me. I can't remember the name of the gentleman that I had on the show, but he's an expert on restaurants. Insurance basically.
And go with an A-rated cover. You know what I mean? An A-rated insurance company too. Don't go cheap.
Yeah, I will be sure to link to that episode where he lists all the different types of elements that your restaurant insurance should include to protect yourself. It's a very powerful episode.
So
Jared, don't forget to link to that in the show notes. Thank you, Jared. We all love Jared.
Yay, Jared. I don't know you, but good looking out.
He's good at what he does.
He's part of the team.
Yes, absolutely. Can't do it without the team.
Yeah.
Anything that we haven't discussed up to this point that's relative to your story? I know we're missing basically from 2014 to present day. There's a lot of time that has elapsed. Anything that's stories worth bringing to the surface that we can learn from before we start to go to the speed round?
Well, I think your name is Restaurant Unstoppable, right? The name of the podcast is Restaurant Unstoppable. So when we had to hard stop and had that flood, it taught me a lot of things because we were done. We were down.
Yeah.
There was nothing moving, no moving parts, literally.
Yeah.
Wasn't selling, nothing. And so when we were down, I was able to see
Catch your breath
all of that. I know, sorry.
No, I'm talking about catching your breath in.
Oh, I'm trying to catch my breath here too. But I was able to see all the pieces that were broken. I was able to see like where we were broken in training because I had the time to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the restaurant was down for that 7 weeks. We figured out the places it was broken. And then during that time, we also were burglarized.
Oh my gosh.
And vandalized because they came in and they were like super PO'd that there was no money. So they decided to just like wreck the place, which it was already wrecked. Like things were everywhere. And it was so disheartening. Like gallons of vinegar poured on the floor. So then it ruined my floor. So then I had to fix my floor on top of it. And then, 6 days after that, I think I was just so emotionally wrecked and exhausted. I was actually on my way to speak at a women's leadership conference, and I got in a car accident, and I totaled my catering van.
Ugh.
Yeah, and then I totaled the man's car in front of me, and then we hit somebody else in front of him, and it was horrible. But I will tell you the thing that I learned is the amount of like good in the world. Like I don't know that I'd ever been more down, even more so than during Restaurant Impossible, because I felt like I had worked so hard to build this thing. I was like,
everything was out of your control.
Yeah, and I was on the top of my game professionally, having come from, Food Network star. I was traveling all over the country. Like, I was in demand as a chef in all these places, and that was like a new experience for me, like top of my game to this like lowest of low, like 1, 2, 3. But the thing that got me was that day, the man whose truck I totaled in front of me, he comes to my window and he was like, "The baby, where's the baby? Is the baby okay?" And I like literally had to be like, "Is my baby in the car?" Like, and he'd seen the car seat fly.
Oh.
And I was like, "She's not here. She's not in the car. She's okay. I broke my wrist, but like everything else was fine." And he was like, "Okay, then we're good."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Dude, I just freaking totaled your car."
Yeah, but
and totaled my car. And I was like, "This'll heal, whatever." And we hit this poor guy, and the poor guy in front of us, he'd just gotten his car back from having been in another rear end accident. And he was like, "Whatever, it's cool, I'm fine. My car will get fixed again."
Yeah.
They were so sweet and kind and like loving. The man had just had a kid 10 days before. And he's like, "That's what matters.
Yeah.
None of the rest of this matters."
Yeah.
And that's what I encountered here too. And so after being down for 7 weeks, my crew was so tight and loved each other so much and loved this place so much and ultimately showed up for me so much that even though these are like tip-based employees, they all showed up. And then guess what? The community all showed up.
I love it.
And our sales went up 15% after we reopened the doors, and they never dipped.
Wow.
Like, that's crazy. So it just shows me like how much love there is and how caring people are and how much people want to show up for each other. I know there's a lot of discussion right now about, people not hearing each other and people not being in tune with each other, not caring and being disconnected. I don't always buy that.
Yeah.
Because I get to experience the opposite of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's about being open.
Exactly.
Right?
But I say it all the time. Like, I think that for the most part, people are good. For the most part, people are good. And we're going to have that douchebag, that dick, that person that's just going to, like, there's going to be these people that will vandalize, and they're like 20%, and don't let that 20% ruin you, because when they have ruined you, they've won. They're pulling you to their side. They're going to make you less trusting. And
and whatever their attitude is, it has nothing to do with you ultimately.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. But the thing is, you have to have that mentality that most people are good, because once you've lost hope, then you've gone to the other side, because you're less likely to help the next person. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I love that. One question. Well, actually, before I ask that question, is there anything that you want to bring as far as like your story, your knowledge, any thing that's near and dear to your heart right now that you want to create awareness around before starting to go to the speed round?
So everything that's happened since then, right? So that's like all of the stuff that happened on TV, and then my son and I were on a TV show together, and he totally kicked ass and won because he's amazing. So everything that's happened, like sort of non-publicly since then, and all of the continued success that we have, is because of two things. It's because of a team that cares, right? This is like my recurring theme. And the second thing is because of fearless change. I am fearless when it comes to changing. I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to research it, but I'm going to go all in and make changes all the way, all along the way.
Talking about?
I'm talking about every kind of change. I'm talking menu change. I'm talking uniform change. I'm talking like, what, like decor. I can only go so far with decor because it was on TV and it's a big deal.
People are expecting it when they come here.
Yeah, but I actually have a change on the books that for the last 2 years that'll make the space even better, but I just keep not being able to afford it because like bigger things come up. That's fine. But yeah, like I'm always looking for technology that's gonna, add to my business. I'm looking,
I have a question for that later.
I know, I saw. Sorry. And, I'm looking for ways to engage with our community that are different. I'm looking for.
So constant growth is what I'm hearing, and not being afraid to change, and not being afraid to.
Well, growth is change, right? Like, and change is growth. And so many people don't do it when they're restaurateurs, I think, especially because they find some lane and they go, well, we're successful here. Yeah, but the world around you is changing.
Yeah.
So you can stay in your lane, but you got to like move and shake it and adapt. And also like the reality of my particular business being that we have a lot of retirees is that people pass. And these are our consistent people, the ones that come in 7 days a week. Yeah. And they come in with their partner. And so if one partner passes, oftentimes it's too painful for the other partner to come back in.
Usually not, or unfortunately.
Or they're not able to.
It's all right.
Keep hitting your mic.
It's fine.
Or they're not able to get here because they don't have the mobility, or they're not allowed to drive, or they're in a home,
it's
or
a,
blah,
it's
blah,
a
blah,
sad
blah,
thing
blah,
to
blah,
say
blah.
too, but usually once the partner splits, the other ones aren't too far behind.
I know,
Yeah.
especially when they're really close. I mean, we've experienced it. It is the worst part of what we do because we love them so much. So that's a real deal. Like, I have attrition when it comes to our guests in a way that other restaurants don't. So I'm constantly like wooing the young people. Well, I'm like, I need that, like, that sexy, like 18 to 35 demographic, but even more than like, 'cause that's good. That fills me in like the weekends and these other spots. But even more than that, I need the young families. So I have to market to them differently. Yeah. So then I'm always looking like, how do I do that? Like, does that mean I need to change my uniform? Does that mean I need to do this? So I'm constantly asking myself questions like, what direction am I driving in? Like right now I'm really expanding our vegan options because it's something somehow that like I've become known for over time. And the reason why is that we're just very open to anybody with any kind of food restriction. And so vegans started coming here. And then I was like, well, yeah, I'll make you a vegan patty from scratch because I don't believe in like the processed food. It's real hard for me. So, we do that. And then like we're named like one of the top vegan sandwiches in San Diego. I'm like, well, shit. Now people are like, hey, what else do you have that's vegan? I'm like, oh, well, this is an opportunity for me to expand our business. So like there's all these changes and like I rotate things in and out of the menu, which people love and hate. You have to stay fresh. Yeah, which can be exhausting.
And scary.
For, you have to manage that, right? Like, I think fear is a great motivator in some ways. Like, if I'm afraid of it, there's got to be a reason. So I want to really drill down and find out like, where's my fear coming from, right? Is it fear because like I'm afraid it's going to take me a lot of time and pull me away from my family? Am I afraid because I think that it's going to cost me a lot of money and I'm not going to get a good, return on investment? Like, where is it coming from? So if I can like nail that down, I can explore like, is this a healthy fear?
You take the strangeness out of it. You explore like whatever it is that's scary, you lean into the fear. You lean into the scary stuff.
Listen, I live a life that's all about healthy risks.
Nice.
So like I jump out of airplanes for fun. Like this is just like I ride motorcycles. We're good.
I didn't cut you short in that thought, did I?
No.
Awesome. So the last question I'm going to ask before we go to the speed. No, you don't. You're doing perfect. The last question I want to ask all my guests is, before going to the speed round, the mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. And I do that by making an example of people like you. But how have you transformed? Who are you today? Who's the woman you are today versus the woman you were getting started in this industry?
Oh, that's a really great question. Who am I now versus then? I think I'm, I'm much older, which is very helpful because I've had time. And I think time affords us so many opportunities to reflect. So, hi. I've had more time to reflect and understand what matters to me. And that's helpful. I think, who am I now versus who I was then?
It's a tough question.
Well, it is. I think I'm somebody who's quicker to listen and not as quick to share, which is funny in this situation.
Well, this is your time to share. Yeah.
I think that I'm more transparent than I've ever been.
You could tell when in 2011 watching you talk and open up, it was hard.
Yeah.
You know, it was, and you've seen the power in that, and it's very like vulnerability is a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
And it's important to ask for help when you need it, right?
Oh, I think that's like the biggest lesson that I've learned. Like, it's important to ask for help when you need it. And I think that I think I'm just more settled into like who I am as a human being and like what matters in my world. I know I said that, but like that is everything.
I love it.
You know, like I'm not wondering what I should do or where I should go. I take the time that it takes to think about what it is I want to do and where it is I want to go. And then I go there fearlessly, and I go there boldly. And sometimes I go the friggin' wrong direction hard.
You don't know until you know.
And then I own it.
Yeah,
and I go,
exactly.
hey, team, we went the wrong way.
Yeah, you can't knock it out of the park every time.
Let's go that way.
Yeah, sometimes you hit a foul ball.
Yeah, plenty. You know, but like I leave room for that now, and I laugh at myself, and I go, well, I'll never forget the power was off. That wasn't my fault. Like SDG&E, our power company, like there was a power outage, and it wasn't planned. It just happens, right? And it was Mother's Day.
Yeah. Breakfast.
Second busiest day of the year. Okay. And I walk in, and my team had told me they came in to open at like 5:30, and they came in and they're like, no power. And I'm like, I'll be there soon. You know? So I walk in and I have my phone and I'm like blasting like some silly song, like super silly song. And Tony, she was like, what are you doing? I was like, well, we could sit here and cry about it, or we could dance. Like, that's kind of who I've become. Yeah. Right?
Like, some things are out of your control, and there's no need and no sense in losing your shit when you have no control over it. Just ride it out, you know, and make the most of it, right? That's what I'm picking up from you.
That's 100% it. Like, we don't know everything, and we're not supposed to, right?
Okay,
we can do our best. It's okay to not know, but we have to. There's a poet called Rainier Maria Rilke. And he has a poem that I love where he's talking about like living the question, right? Like we have to live the question. We have to like get in there and do our best. And we don't know. And we're not supposed to know, because if we knew it would probably be too much, we wouldn't do it the right way anyways.
Yes.
So you live the question. You get in there, you get comfortable being uncomfortable, and you go.
Yes, and I love this. I love this. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much, Stacey. We're going to take one more quick break to thank our sponsors, and we're going to try to wrap this conversation up under 2 hours. It's been a blast. It's not.
Did I get a record? Longest ever?
I've had to split a couple up between 2 episodes, but I think I'm throwing that out the window. I'm going Joe Rogan style. I'm just letting it go. If the conversation's going, why stop it? That's how I feel. So one more quick break to thank your sponsors. We'll be right back to wrap up a true speed round. This episode brought to you by MarginEdge. Never deal with a paperwork nightmare again. We're back, and the first question I have for you is, what is your it factor? A habit, a trait, a characteristic you believe most contributes to your success?
Communication.
What is your biggest weakness?
Communication.
Ooh, how is that your strength and your weakness?
Because sometimes
it happens a lot.
I say too much.
Over-communicate.
I over-communicate. People are like, you're beating a dead horse.
Yeah,
like,
we got it.
Yeah.
What's one question you ask or thing you look for during the interview process?
I'm sorry. I should be faster at this.
No, you're fine.
Kindness.
How do you know when you see kindness? Is it just a gut feeling?
It's not just a gut feeling. It's in all the in-between moments.
Okay.
Do they ask where their cup should go if they'd had a glass of water? Are they considerate? Do they say please when somebody offers them something to drink? Because I always make sure somebody offers them something to drink. I don't know. Interviews are interesting because really kind people can be so nervous that they just can't smile in the beginning.
That's true.
Kindness and a sense of humor. Like, you literally can't work for me if you don't have a sense of humor. Like, it's not going to happen. We're not going to be friends. Like, we need to be able to laugh because some shit goes really wrong. And if we can't laugh at it at the end of the day, like, we don't belong together.
I love it.
So I ask a hilarious question. I always ask some super fucking wacky question, and it is this. You're all welcome. You're all welcome to use it. If you were somebody in a circus, the old school 3-ring circus, who would you be? Ready? Go, Eric. Answer it.
Ooh, the lion tamer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always thought it's really badass to be able to look a lion. To make a lion jump through a hoop, like that lion, it can eat you, and it knows it can eat you. But to like have that confidence that you can trick a lion into jumping through a hoop is like just impressive in my opinion. I don't know.
Bravo. Well done.
Not bad for on the spot, right?
Well, yeah, no, that's great. So that's the idea. Okay. Yeah. People ask us weird ass shit in the restaurant. And you had to be able to come up with an answer and have a smile on your face when you're doing it. So I ask people the weirdest questions to see how they behave when they're uncomfortable.
Ah, that's cool. I like it.
So
the next question is, what is your biggest challenge today?
Time.
How are you managing time?
Just, how am I managing it? How much I have, where I spend it.
So how are you combating that challenge?
It's different every day. It's literally different every day. I also have switched over to like everything being electronic for me. So I track everything electronically. Yep. I use Todoist to keep my lists. I use Todoist for my management team to delegate out to them so I can, track what they're doing and they can respond to me on projects and that kind of thing.
There's a question for technology, but I'll ask now real quick.
Yeah.
And then we can come back to the technology question later. But what list tools are you using?
So I use Todoist, and then I use reminders in my iPhone. I'm constantly telling Siri to remind me. She's my favorite personal assistant. She's kind of got a bitchy voice. But I'm like, yo, Siri, remind me to call this person tomorrow or make this gift certificate. So I can be on the spot and get something done. I'm not going to lose a piece of paper, right? So I use the heck out of Siri. My calendar is everything because I can share it with my family.
I don't even know what I'm doing the next day anymore. Until the night before. I'm like, what's tomorrow look like? Oh, cool.
Exactly. So all of those things are huge. And then we are utilizing, technology for time management in the restaurant as well. So we switched over to Toast as our point of sale system this year. We added Yelp waitlist, which is really helping us with our efficiencies, at the host stand. And that's really helping us communicate better with our
I want to put that in the back burner because I want to pull back layers on that. But let's get to the next question, which is share one code of conduct or behavior you teach your team. This is a core value, a way to be.
A way to be, a core value. Okay, so the very first thing that we talk about in orientation is that we give vintage, like our goal is to provide vintage hospitality to our guests. And so then I talk about what that means. Vintage hospitality is like that old school gas station attendant hospitality where like Johnny comes out to the car and he's filling you up with gas, but in the meantime, he's also like asking you how your son is and how that baseball game went. And he's like washing your window at the same time. And he's like, hey, pop your trunk or pop your hood. You pop your hood and he's like, oh, you're low on some washer fluid. Let me get that for you and top it off. And, in the meantime, you came there for gas.
Yeah.
That's it. But what you had was a genuine interaction with somebody who cares about you.
I love it.
So they're going above and beyond, but it's not above and beyond. It's just what they do.
I love it. So. Beautiful stuff. Share one uncommon standard of service you teach your team. So maybe this is a double dipper. I don't know. Yeah. The last one was kind of close to this, but something that you do within your four walls, that four-wall marketing that we were talking about earlier, to go above and beyond what's expected from the guest.
So when it's slower and we're not just like literally running to get things where they need to be, my favorite thing to do is challenge my team to learn 3 new names. So
how do you track that?
So I ask them to tell me whose names did you learn and tell me about them. So that's that thing where I'm pushing them.
I think it just keeps them top of mind, right?
Yeah, I'm pushing them to find that way to like create vintage hospitality. Because vintage hospitality doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists because we are connecting. Yeah. Because we are creating it on a day-to-day basis, on a guest-to-guest basis.
I love it. Share one book that's a must-read to make us a better person or restaurant operator.
Holy cow! I read a lot.
I know it's gonna be tough to pick one, right?
Oh, I don't like picking one.
Pick 2.
I suck. Okay, great. All right. So because I came up in this corporate zone and it's what we did, I find them very helpful. I think 1 Minute Manager is still a classic. Book. It's such a great thing. And it's because my team, like they manage their own sections. They manage their own part of the business. I tell them all the time, like you are the business. Yeah. So I think that is such an awesome book and it's so easy and fast, right?
I think it's literally like a 1 hour audio book. Listen. It's fast, or maybe it's 2 hours. It's.
I don't know. Book. I don't audio.
Oh, really?
So for me, it's like a super fast read.
You
like flip through. It's a short book. It has like 10 examples of the same thing in every chapter, so you can just kind of skim. But you walk away feeling like oh, you know, you just kind of get it more. There's that. And then like on a personal note, I think that, you know, to make you a better person, I think that Mark Nepo's Book of Awakening is just an awesome daily read. So it's got like little short excerpts about life or ponderings. He went through having, you know, cancer treatments, and it was just kind of like his journal from that time. So really, it's like things to give you pause during the day, ways to think about life, you know, ideas to journal about or meditate about or whatever. I meditate every day. It makes my life a whole different life.
How do you find time?
You make time. You make time for anything that's important. That's the reality.
I love it.
So every morning I get up earlier than everybody else, and I make my pot of coffee, and I sit on my porch for, you know, 15 minutes. And
you got to build it. You got to block out the time, but you got to make it a part of your routine.
If it's important, you will do it. If I have 20 minutes to scroll through bullshit on Instagram, I have 20 minutes to go meditate or 20 minutes to go work out.
How did you learn how to meditate?
My dad taught me when I was really young, and then I kind of walked away from it. I did it in college, right? Because it's super stressful. And then I walked away from it for a really long time. And then I maybe
what is that approach
9 months
you
ago
use?
had a friend.
Sorry,
no, it's okay. So I had a friend kind of inspire me to get back to it, and suggested a meditation app. And so now I use Insight Timer.
Okay.
And
I use Headspace, which I really like.
used Headspace first. Like Homeboy's voice is amazing, right? Like he's
Australian.
he's like the super great voice. And so I used to every day after drop off, I'd go sit at Mission Trails Regional Park, which we're named after, and I would sit and meditate there for a while. But like for whatever reason, I wasn't completely connecting with everything on Headspace, or it was like too structured. You have to go from A to B to C, and I'd like to be a little bit more like free.
Yeah, I don't use it anymore. But I think when you're first learning how to meditate, like you're just like, what do I do? I just sit here and like, what next?
Yeah.
Like if you're not familiar with it, you need a coach to teach you how to meditate. And really, like I think the great way to do it is just focusing on breath, just like getting out of your head and focusing on one thing.
Yeah.
And like
it's warm on the way out and cool on,
exactly.
or warm on the way in and cool on
but
the way out.
Headspace,
right,
what was the thing that you mentioned?
So Insight Timer, it has 24,000 free meditations, and many of them are guided. Then there's also like soundscapes. So once you kind of like get into the zone where you're meditating with a little bit, you know, more ease and you're more practiced at it, you can also just set up a timer with some sounds and things that you like in the background and do that. There are courses, but then you have to pay for the premium, which I totally did because I was like, worth every dime. And so then there's courses that you can do with like different teachers. You can follow teachers. You can bookmark things that you love. So it's just like this endless, it's kind of like podcasting. Like there's like all of this knowledge base, and it's just there to like help you grow and also like give you a space to like, I feel like as you can move through your day, you kind of like tighten into a ball, and it allows me to like unravel everything and gives me an opportunity to look at it all and go,
I think by the way, I think you might have officially broken the record now.
Yes. Hang out with me.
I'm loving
God
it.
help you if you come to the restaurant.
I just feel bad like I'm abusing your voice right now, but I'm loving every moment of this conversation, just so you know.
So this is Eric really nicely being like, Stace, this is speed round, go fast.
No, seriously, I could go all day. You're doing great. What is one service? This is a new question. So this is not technology. This is people. This is an expert, an authority, somebody like you mentioned, your marketer. Name one person that you've reached out to that has a service that you just rave about that has helped you in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. My marketing manager, Corey.
Yeah, what's the name of his
Wavefront.
Business? Wavefront?
Yeah, he's extraordinary. Like everything he does is extraordinary. He's young and he's hungry and he's full of fresh ideas, but he's always reaching to learn, and he gives 120%.
Look out, Corey.
Every time.
I hope you have room for a few more clients. You're gonna get a couple calls.
Yeah.
Name one service. Name one. This is the technology question. What technology you've adopted? You've already listed Toast, Yelp, No Wait. What else? I mean, do you want us to dive into those a little bit further?
Yeah, absolutely. So Yelp, No Wait was something Corey brought to me that some of his other restaurant concepts have used. And he was like, hey, listen, Stacey, he's like, I know that you're always resistant to new things initially, because sometimes I am. I'm like, I don't want to think about anything else right now. He was like, just take a look at this. Like, he knows me too. He's like, snapshots.
Yeah.
Read these 3 things. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Like, let's set up a meeting. I have time next week. Great. Okay. So, we set up a meeting, sit down, like, and that's the thing he knows about me. I want a face-to-face. If I can talk to a person, then we have, you have 90% higher chance. If you're not going to make the time to make time for me, we're not going to do
You're
this.
talking to the person that drives across the country
To
to sit
do
down
these.
instead of do a Skype or, whatever
Yes.
view.
Thank you for that.
No,
Because
it's my
I think
pleasure.
it matters so much. It's part of why I don't do the Book of Faces, because I don't care about that. I care about this. I care about this one-on-one. I care about like truly connecting.
The Book of Faces.
The
What
Book
the
of
fuck's she
Faces.
talking
Yeah,
about?
Facebook. So I'd rather sit down with you for, a
Exactly.
half hour once a year,
Yep.
but know that like we're really having a connection than like see that you went to like,
so powerful.
Ethiopia, and then the other day you were at your grandma's house. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't know. Like, tell me that in person.
Who are
Anyways.
you right now in this moment, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Yelp No Wait has been extraordinary. It's such a low cost for the amount of business it can drive. So it's really reduced the amount of open seats that we have during the day.
Business it drives, but beyond that, if you're a wait list operation, if you don't do reservations, it's just an incredible tool to organize your wait list, to streamline your wait list. Think about the amount of people that leave because they show up and there's a line.
Yeah.
Whereas,
well, that still happens. So people join the wait list. This is my biggest pet peeve, is that they join the wait list, and when they leave, they don't remove themselves from the wait list. So then I'm like,
but isn't there like a minimum, like a 10-minute like window that they have?
I give them 5.
Okay.
Like, my business is too fast for that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give you 5. And usually, like, if you get to 3, I'm like,
well,
I'm going to call the next person.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be another table in a few minutes.
And
So
for a
you
little
just have to-
context, though, like the way like you show up to the restaurant or online, you give your name, the amount of people in your party, and your phone number.
Yep.
Right. So you're getting text messages the entire time. Your table will be ready in 15 minutes. Your table will be ready in 5 minutes. So it's not like they got to time it. Like it's proactive.
They can be proactive, but not all of them are. So when the users are proactive, it's amazing. And we did something. We set up a 3-mile geofence to really hook up our core community, like the people that have like taken care of us through the whole thing. So these are people that live right here. That a lot of them have kids, and so I'm like, hey, listen, like if you can do this from home. Like, I know you live 3 minutes away. Like, you can do this from home. And so when you see, like, you're getting closer, just head over. And then it makes it possible for young families to tolerate an hour wait on the weekend.
Yep.
So we get to still watch people's kids grow
you
up.
also respect their time because now they can get in line, run an errand, it's just better communication. It's better use of time for everybody. It's a great tool.
People thank us every single weekend. Thank you so much. I'm like, oh my God, you're welcome. Thank you. Like, I love this.
Yeah, it's great.
People hike the mountain and like on their way down, there's
I have
a
to
big
check out these
mountain
trails you're talking
Yo,
about.
the trails are amazing. I'll tell you all about them later. So yeah, they'll like be hiking and then they'll just text like, or join the wait list from Yelp, and it's been great. So that has been great. Toast has been great. I feel like it's a really user friendly, easy system. And the best part of it is that it allows me to update things in real time. So I can be completely offsite. This really happens. Like, I can be in Europe. We go to Europe often in our family. And so like I can be in England and they can be like, hey, the special didn't put on. I'm like, oh God, I missed that before I left. Sorry. And then like go from my phone and like literally push 7 or 8 buttons and like voila.
Boom.
Yeah, I push update on my phone in England, and they have the special they need.
That's awesome.
Real time.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Great stuff. And so that was No Wait. And you're still talking about No Wait with that tool?
No, that was No Wait, and then that was the next tool was Toast.
Toast. Gotcha.
So I mean, I just really like having a cloud-based system has been pretty extraordinary, and then because they're competing so hard with Aloha right now, basically like giving away things.
Yeah.
I was able to put in a screen for my egg cook, and like it changed everything. To have these like screen systems. It's funny because all my cooks work in other restaurants too, and they all have touchscreen systems. I'm the only one who hadn't. So the first time I got on the line, I was like, I usually will run it, and I'm like, I can't run the line right now.
And this is your time to shine, but I will say this about Toast, and it's something that comes up a lot on the show. Is that their customer service is amazing. And that's one thing that you cannot undermine. Like, it might be more expensive. Toast might be a little bit more expensive than some of the options out there.
Yeah.
But what you get for that customer service, if your shit goes down,
Yeah.
You need somebody to be on the other end of that call 24/7.
Always there.
Yep.
And it doesn't cost you extra.
Yep.
Like everyone else, it's like, oh, well, help desk is going to cost you $100 a call. I'm like, really? Like, it's not, A, it's not my fault if your system goes down. B,
Yeah.
you
and
know,
they're Boston based, and I'm from New England.
Oh,
so
woo,
gotta
yeah.
support those guys.
And they were so great. Like,
Yeah.
I really went not only with the technology that I thought was going to be great, but I went with the customer service that I thought was
And
going to be
another
on
point. You're
point.
in San Diego.
Yeah.
They're in Boston, and the customer service is still there for you. So
100%
that's a
of the
testament.
time. And
Yep.
we have really used that along the way, because the funniest thing, like, I think humility is a really important thing for a restaurant owner. Like, they'll ask me like, hey, how do you do this? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, let's call the helpline.
Yeah, that's great. So we've gotten to the last
Speed.
question. We've gotten to the last question. And this is a doozy, so get ready for it. If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom that you could leave behind for the good of humanity and for your legacy. What would those 3 things you'd want to tie to your legacy be? That's a deep one.
Yeah.
It's a very appropriate song in the background right
Yeah,
now.
it is.
It's calming. I don't know why it's appropriate, but
I'd say the first piece of, we're saying piece of advice, right?
Yep.
Live from your heart.
1.
Yeah. Ask questions.
2.
Say thank you.
3. This has been a great conversation, Stacey. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, your knowledge, your mentorship. We wrap up every chat by calling somebody out. Think of somebody you respect and admire. That's how I found you.
Yep.
Our boy Sean called you out.
What up, Sean?
Yes. Who do you respect and admire and believe would make a great guest mentor like you made for us today? Restaurant owner, preferably.
Yeah, restaurant owner. So there are a cafe/restaurant owners. I would like to call out Aaron and Laura, and they are over at Public Square.
Okay.
They are the Hendersons. They're this amazing family, and they are all about community. They really are about building community through their space and every single thing you do, and every single thing they do. This is actually like their stuff right here. I work with this all day, and my husband's artwork is all over it, but that's not why I'm a fan of theirs. This is actually my husband's artwork.
Nice.
But I'm fan of theirs. I'm a fan of theirs because of the commitment they have to their community, and the commitment they have to quality, and the commitment they have to like loving people and giving them like a platform and opportunity to shine.
I love that.
They're just such amazing human beings.
Aaron and Lorna?
No, Aaron and Laura.
Laura. Aaron and Laura. No, you're fine. Look out. I'm coming after you. I'd love to get you on the show. And what if we want to connect with you? What if we want to come join your team? Or we have questions about what you shared with us. Is there a way we can connect on social real quick? What's the best way to connect?
So you can find me all over the Weberverse at SPK Cooks. So Stacey Poon-Kinney, SPK Cooks, COOKS. Again, I don't actually manage my Facebook, but Corey does. He'd be happy to pass things on to me because that's what he does with their personal. He'll shoot me a text. But the best way to connect with me is on Instagram. That's me. You'll see me. I'm there. Sometimes I dip. Like, I'll just be gone for a month sometimes just because like I'm over it and I can't.
You got to. I mean, I think it's unrealistic how much pressure is put on people to stay active on social media.
Yeah.
It's not realistic. But
And also, it's like not always healthy to be on there all the time. Like,
that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, whole nother. You know, I'm like, I'm following like 3,000 people, and I'll like be scrolling through. I'm like, I don't know them. Like, what am I looking
How would you get
at?
on my feed?
Well, listen, and the weirdest thing is like, then like something will catch your eye, and then you start like really paying attention to somebody you don't actually know.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're having a conversation with them. This really happened about motorcycles. Like, I'm like, oh, that's the coolest motorcycle. Oh, what do you like? I'm in the market, and like, yeah, I don't know what to buy though. Anyways, we have this whole conversation, and then a week later we run into each other at Trader Joe's, and like I keep looking, and I'm like, but I don't like actually know this guy, but like, do I know you? And then like he's looking at me, and I'm like, it's totally the guy. Like, I don't know. And then we walk out to our cars at the same time. He's like, are you Stacey? And I'm like, are you Joe? I'm like, this is so strange. Anyways, so you can catch me, and then maybe we'll run into each other at a Trader Joe's at SPK Cooks. If you want to know more about the restaurant, we're at the Trails Eatery all over the place. Again, we're still on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook under that, so you can kind of keep up with what's going on at the restaurant. We really try to keep those two things separate so that if you want to look at both, you're going to really get a feel for like who I am and what my life's like, and then you'll also get a feel for like what the restaurant's doing and what we're doing. And if you want to work here, shoot me a message like via email or on any of those places, and we can always talk. I'm hiring hosts right now.
And this is a happening spot. You're going to make a lot of money for your front of house tips. I'm sure they do really well here. Very busy. Great culture, great team. So
before we're done, I know you're trying to tie this one off. I just want to take a moment to say thank you to you. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share things that I haven't been able to share, especially about people who have fed into me over the course of time and have been mentors to me and have allowed me to grow because of the time that they've spent with me. Like, that was just so incredibly meaningful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that. And it's honestly my pleasure. That's what it's all about.
Yay, this was great.
So thank you again for taking the time to share your story, your knowledge, your mentorship. There is no questioning. You are unstoppable. And I almost forgot to mention, this is episode 678. So head over to 678 episode, restaurantunstoppable.com/678. I'll have a summary of today's discussion, as well as a link to any tool service book that was recommended, as well as how to connect. There's a lot of tool handles and information in that, so we'll link to it all. Don't you worry. Again, episode 678. Thank you so much, Stacey Poon-Kinney. There is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
Thanks, Eric.
Cheers.
Cheers.